approximately 711 square feet in size, crashed onto the spa section near the main pool at Taipei Nangang Sports Center on Saturday morning, injuring a woman in her 60s. About 50 people, dozens of them children, were having swimming lessons in the main pool meters away as their parents sat at the audience stand, according to reports. CCTV footage captured the horrifying moment a massive piece of ceiling shatters and comes tumbling down near the main pool, stunning swimmers. There were about 47 children taking swimming lessons in the pool and 3 family members sitting at the poolside, according to United Daily News. One of the coaches said lifeguards immediately started evacuating people. A woman was hit by the fallen plaster and ceiling materials and suffered a swollen arm, according to the report. There are flaws in the construction design that pose danger, Liu Hemming from Taipei City's Department of Sports told reporters. The steam or the chlorine from the water might have corroded the steel structure of the facility's ceiling, according to the report. The sports center was built 11 years ago and lacked maintenance in the pool's ceiling parts. The damage left a large hole in the ceiling and pieces of debris were seen at the bottom of the shallow pool in the spa section. The Nangang Sports Center issued a statement on their website saying that the pool will be closed between July 14 to July 27 due to partial damage to the ceiling. All swimming lessons will be suspended in the meantime. Almost half of men have no idea how often their wives achieve orgasm during sex. A damning new survey of more than 3,200 newlyweds found a quarter of husbands overestimate how often their wife reaches climax. This presents a huge problem for couples, scientists said, as women whose husbands are clueless about their partner's orgasms tend to be unhappier in their sex lives and relationships. Scroll down for video. The study, from researchers at Brigham Young University in Utah, used results from a survey of 1,683 heterosexual couples. Respondents, all aged between 18 and 36 and within their first year of marriage, were asked how often they and their partner climaxed. They answered on a scale of 1 to 5, with a score of 1 signifying a range from never to 20% of the time. A top score of 5 meant women climaxed from 80% to all of the time. Men were asked to provide the same score for their wives, but got it wrong in 43% of cases. They were more likely to overestimate the answer, suggesting that almost 3 decades after Meg Ryan famously faked an orgasm at a diner table in When Harry Met Sally, women often still do this. Commenting on the research, Amanda Major, head of clinical practice at Relationship Counseling Service Relate, said, "When it comes to couples' love lives there can be a lot of misunderstandings. It is a problem if men are misperceiving how often women orgasm, because this can lead to disappointment, over-expectation and frustration for both partners, and affect self-esteem. Not all women need to climax during sex to have had a good experience, so understanding that and finding out what you each need from each other sexually is usually the best way of making sure everyone is happy." More than 1 in 5 women achieve orgasm less than 4 in 10 of their sexual encounters, the study results show. Just 3% of men have a happy ending this infrequently. Psychologists suggest there are 5 stages of love: butterflies, building, assimilation, honesty and stability. Each of these stages has a different impact on our psyche and health, researchers at eHarmony found in a 2014 survey. 1. Butterflies marked by intense infatuation and sexual attraction. Symptoms noted by couples included weight loss, 30%, and a lack of productivity, 39%. Biologically, it's reported that during this early stage of dating, both men and women create more of the sex hormones testosterone and estrogen. As a result, more than half (56%) noted an increase in their libido. 2. Building. As the initial attraction gives way to learning more about one another, the honeymoon stage subsides and a couple begin to build their relationship. A Harmony's study estimated around 3% of Britons in relationship are currently at stage 2. The body releases neurochemicals called monoamines, which speed up heart rate, trigger rushes of intense pleasure, and replicate the effects of class A drugs. The biological effect culminates in a feeling of happy anxiety, where people can think of little else than their blossoming relationship. 44% of the study participants noted a lack of sleep, while 29% reported their attention span had been adversely affected. 3. Assimilation. Having established whether the other person is right, stage 3 forces a couple to question whether the relationship itself is right. Questions over the future of the union and forming boundaries in the relationship can lead to a rise in stress levels, reported by 27% of those taking part in the study. 4. Honesty. Stage 3 combines with stage 4, where people open up showing the real yo. Sees the first real rise in stress levels and anxiety. This stage deals with the concept behind how we all put on our best faces. Through social media we edit our lives as well as our pictures to make it appear as though everything is fine. Psychologist Dr. Linda Papadopoulos, who assisted with the study, told Mail Online. Opening up completely triggered feelings of doubt and increased vulnerability in 15% of participants. 5. Stability. If a couple can weather the emotional roller coaster of the first 4 stages, the 5th and final stage, stability, brings with it increased levels of trust and intimacy. A Harmony found 50% of respondents had reached this stage, and 23% reported feeling happier as a result. Biologically, vasopressin, a powerful hormone released by men and women during orgasm, strengthens feelings of attachment. Meanwhile, oxytocin, released during childbirth, deepens feelings of attachment. This is where we see a real level of contentness, Dr. Papadopoulos told Mail Online. We found the body releases wonderful hormones which helps couples bond. We noted a real sense of attachment, and a sense of you have got my back and I've got yours. While 25% of men overestimated how often their wife climaxed, 17% of those in the study underestimated the figure and had a better love life than they realized. Unsurprisingly, women were far more aware of what was happening in the bedroom, with only 1 in 7 misjudging how often their husband climaxed. Couples also answered. Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel and their Formula One rivals arrived in Budapest on Thursday ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Vettel will be looking to close the gap on Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship this weekend following a dramatic German Grand Prix last Sunday. Mercedes Hamilton regained his lead at the top of the standings after rising from 14th place to win the race last week. 1. Lewis Hamilton minus 188 points. 2. Sebastian Vettel minus 171 points. 3. Kimi Räikkönen minus 131 points. 4. Valtteri Bottas minus 122 points. 5. Daniel Ricciardo minus 106 points. Ferrari's Vettel is 17 points behind the Brit after crashing out on lap 52 after starting in pole position in his home race. Hamilton wore some shades, a bright pink sweatshirt, white shorts and a pink Mercedes cap as he walked in the paddock on Thursday. Meanwhile, Vettel donned a red Ferrari polo top and cap along with some sunglasses as he arrived ahead of the next few days of action. Practice 1, Friday, July 27th, 10 o'clock, 11:30. Practice 2, Friday, July 27th, 1400 hours, 15:30. Practice 3, Saturday, July 28th, 11 o'clock noon qualifying. Saturday, July 28th, 1400 hours 1500 hours race. Sunday, July 29th, 1410-1610 Red Bull drivers Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo were also snapped upon arrival. The Hungarian Grand Prix is the 12th race of the F1 calendar. Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen finished 1 and 2 respectively in 2017, with Hamilton finishing 4th after surrendering his podium finish to teammate Valtteri Bottas. Fans at the Hungaroring will be able to catch a glimpse of their favorites in action on Friday, with 2 practice sessions scheduled for the morning and afternoon. It will be fascinating to see who goes quick. It is hard to believe that it has been just over 5 months since our second son, Lucas, was born on February 3rd. His mother, Khloe, is doing well, which is something to be thankful for, given the excessive maternal mortality rates in the U.S. Lucas is also healthy and growing, albeit sleeping little at night. What is unbelievable is the fact that I am still receiving bills for his birth. Of course, I knew what was going to happen when we found out that my wife was pregnant. I study health policy for a living, and I have written extensively about the American healthcare system. Yet for all the reading and writing, experiencing healthcare in America personally is a rather shocking experience. Keep in mind, our birthing experience was without any complications, and we have health insurance. I cannot imagine how overwhelming the experience must be for someone with fewer resources and less of an understanding about healthcare in America. Being pregnant and giving birth, not what it used to be from the first doctor's appointment, we were introduced to what to expect, lots of paperwork and lots of bills. There are of course all the monthly, then bi-weekly, and then weekly doctor's visits with the corresponding bills. In West Virginia, due to the opioid epidemic, most doctors will also insist on a drug screen. As it turned out, my wife's doctor ordered copious amounts of blood work and ultrasounds, outpatient diagnostic services, totaling thousands of dollars. It is hard to question any of these when all you want is a healthy baby, and your doctor is the only one who knows which tests are necessary. Like most parents, we also wanted to know whether our baby was going to be healthy. Here is the total amount of the bill for genetic testing sent to our insurance company, $26,755. Giving birth to our first son, Nico, had been quite an arduous experience for my wife. She labored for more than 30 hours. Determined not to spend hours in the hospital, my wife practically gave birth this time in the front seat of our car. Ultimately, I was able to throw my wife onto a bed in the maternity ward, and Lucas popped right out. I joked to my wife, at least they cannot charge us for delivery. At the very least, I should file a claim with our insurance company. I am still not quite sure how wrong I was, because every time I ask for a detailed bill, new items appear while others miraculously disappear. About $65 an hour, for lodging the delivery room, which we used for all of 1 minute, cost about $7,000. Room and board for my wife for 48 hours cost just over $3,100. 2 Tylenols for my wife, $25. Laboratory work, $1,200. That does not account for Lucas. Room and board for him was just over $1,500. Various laboratory work charges added another $1,400 or so. The hearing test cost $260. I tried to keep track of all the medical personnel coming and going, but after a while it all became a blur. The doctor, who was not present at birth, charged $4,200 for delivery and care. Pediatricians stopped by a few times to check on Lucas for $150 per look. We were not able to take advantage of a tax-favored flexible spending account for most of these expenses, because being pregnant does not count as a life event. While giving birth does count, the added contributions cannot be applied to previous costs associated with the birth. Bringing the baby home as demanding as giving birth is, in many ways, the real challenges of raising children start when one leaves the hospital. Like many American women, my wife, a teacher, did not have access to paid maternity leave. Hence, we had to make do with one income for a few months. Of course, this could not have been a more inconvenient time to lose a paycheck, because literally every day we received medical bills. Many of the bills misspelled someone's name or got another fact wrong, which led to countless phone calls with providers and our insurer. Diapers and other baby items, naturally, are also not cheap. Once my semester ended in early May, my wife went back to work as I watched Lucas. This brought new challenges with it. For one, as a professor, I am also not getting paid over the summer. Moreover, while the Affordable Care Act provides added benefits and protections for breastfeeding, there are limitations. For one, not all breast pumps are covered, and insurance companies are getting stingier. This is of course ironic given that there is a whole other effort going on to encourage mothers to breastfeed more because it has been found so beneficial for mother and child. Finding an appropriate place and time to pump breast milk at work, even with a decent pump and governmental protections, comes with a slew of challenges. Currently my wife is using every free minute she can find and locks her classroom. Finding the time and space when doing continuing education or field trips is, of course, a whole other story. Going forward, we are rather lucky. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act, child visits and preventive care like immunizations will be included in our insurance. Of course, should something serious happen, like a hospitalization, we will be on the hook again for potentially thousands of dollars. My employer allows me to work from home during the fall semester so I can take care of Lucas at the same time. Of course, while I do not have to teach a class on campus, expectations about research and service will not diminish. Yet soon, we will have to put Lucas into daycare. We have been on several waiting lists since the moment we found out my wife was pregnant. Last time, I had to drive my son Nico 45 minutes one way to a daycare we were comfortable with in Pennsylvania. Even if we are lucky to find a nice daycare close by, fees will exceed in-state tuition at West Virginia University, my employer. Putting our experience in perspective, our experience is, of course, not unique. America's poorest members of society are somewhat shielded from medical costs. Medicaid generally does not require out-of-pocket contributions. For those on the Children's Health Insurance Program and those with cost-sharing subsidies on the Affordable Care Act insurance marketplaces, out-of-pocket contributions are limited. In both cases, the high costs of giving birth are passed on to public sources and those of us with private insurance. The real struggles of the poor begin as they seek to raise their children with limited resources and diminishing governmental support. Yet the middle class more and more often finds itself squeezed between a rock and a hard place when it comes to health care. Premiums, deductibles and co-payments continue to increase while services and choices grow narrower every year. With Republican efforts to undo much or all of the Affordable Care Act, even those of us with employer-sponsored insurance may lose many protections. Many of us are simultaneously struggling to pay back our student loans, which already forces many to delay marriage, have kids, or buy a house. For us, and many others, this also meant cutting back on virtually everything, including family vacations and replacing appliances. It also meant taking up every opportunity to add income for both of us by taking side jobs. Any potential future pay raises are likely to be swallowed up by premium increases and co-payments as healthcare costs continue to grow unabated. Too rich for government programs, yet too poor to avoid financial hardship given these struggles. It is perhaps not surprising that the frustrations of the middle class breed resentment toward a startup has developed a robot that might make it so you'll never accidentally kill a plant again. Called Hexa, the intelligent planter is just big enough to hold a medium-sized succulent and is equipped with spider-like legs that can walk into the sunlight when its plant passenger needs some vitamin D. Beijing-based robotics company Vincross created Hexa with the idea that humans might become more acquainted with robots in their home. Scroll down for video. Hexa can walk toward the light when the plant is in need of some sun and rotate or spin to get the right amount of sunlight. The robot has 6 legs and various sensors that help it move. The 6-legged robot is equipped with several motors, infrared and 720p cameras, as well as a Linux operating system. Hexa uses its legs to walk toward the light when the plant is in need of some sun and rotate or spin to get the right amount of sunlight. It will also tell you if the succulent needs water by stamping its legs up and down. And if the plant is happy, Hexa will even do a little dance. Hexa's optical and spatial sensors allow it to watch and learn from the world around it, the Vincross website states, and allow you to create interesting and intelligent functionality. Vincross, which modified Hexa from an earlier design to be able to hold a plant, sells the robot for the eye-watering price of $949. A wireless version goes for $999. Tianqi's son, CEO of Vincross, said he was inspired to create Hexa after seeing a dead sunflower. It will also tell you if the succulent needs water by stamping its legs up and down. And if the plant is happy, Hexa will even do a little dance or play a game with its owners. Beijing-based startup Vincross has developed a robot plant holder that can almost take care of your succulent for you. Called Hexa, it can carry up to 3.3 pounds and uses its 6 legs to walk into sunlight when it senses your plant needs vitamin D. It's equipped with several motors, infrared and 720p cameras, and a Linux operating system. Hexa is 6 tall and 15.7 wide. It can last up to 4 hours on a single charge. In 2014, I went to see a sunflower exhibition, and found myself focused on a dead sunflower near a ground of blooms, Sun wrote in a blog post. I thought, if it could move a little bit, take a 30-feet walk out of the shadow to where the other sunflowers were, it would have lived healthily. But it didn't. Sun initially used the idea as part of an installation art piece called Sharing Human Technology with Plants that involved a walking succulent plant. He later envisioned bringing this idea to the original Hexa design and, from there, the prototype was born. Sun added that in order to make it work, he constructed a dual-layer flower pot to replace Hexa's original shell. With a robotic rover base, plants can experience mobility and interaction. Sun explained. A little girl nervous about her cousin dropping a heavy toy attached to her wobbly tooth is comforted by an adult, who accidentally drops the toy, yanking the tooth out anyway. Imani Morales has a remote control car tied to her tooth, but appears to be having second thoughts about letting her cousin drop it and in doing so tugging out her baby tooth. Her aunt Melissa Morales and boyfriend Chris filmed as the young girl is seen holding her mouth closed and crying as her little cousin holds the toy. Chris then takes the toy off her and offers it to her, saying that she can do it herself. But as he gives it to her, it rolls off the youngster's lap, crashing to the floor, pulling her tooth out, leaving little Imani bewildered. Mom Janelle Mercado, from Tempe, Arizona, said that her daughter was spending the night at her Aunt Melissa's house with her little cousin. Her front tooth was really wiggly. She'd been messing with it for about a week, but it just didn't seem quite ready to come out yet. When I was sent the video, and saw the car attached to my daughter's tooth, as she was screaming, I was cringing, but I couldn't look away. But boy was I wrong, this video is hilarious. I watched it about 10 times in a row, and it just kept getting funnier. This is a hilarious moment. Two elderly women laugh and joke as they roll around on an inflatable raft while trying to disembark. The duo can be seen being assisted by two other women as they fail to get into position to leave the air-filled watercraft. An onlooker records the ladies' comical tumbles while laughing and providing commentary. The ridiculous clip, which was recorded in French Village, Missouri, lasts an embarrassing 3.5 minutes before the women finally depart the vessel. At one point, one of the women is encouraged to slide down a flap hanging off the end of the boat. When she works up the courage to do so, she ends up slipping into the shallow water and fails to get up again. She is then helped by giggling friends and eventually regains her dignity. The other occupant of the boat manages to get out by adopting a no less dignified method of crawling on her front to reach freedom. She is then helped by amused chums before she sits in the shallow water. Hillary Clinton is trolling Donald Trump just hours before his scheduled summit meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. Great World Cup, the former Secretary of State tweeted late Sunday. Question for President Trump as he meets Putin: do you know which team you play for? Clinton lost the election to Trump in November 2016. Her campaign and other members of the Democratic Party were hacked by Russian operatives on the orders of Putin, it has been alleged. It is believed that Putin and the Russians tried to do damage to Clinton because they preferred Trump win the election. Trump, his campaign, and the Russian government all deny there was any collusion. Trump arrived in Finland on Sunday for his closely watched summit with Putin. He planned no public appearances until Monday, when he heads to the presidential palace for breakfast with Finnish President Sauli Niinisto. Trump and Putin meet later Monday at the palace. The president flew in from Scotland, where he and his wife, Melania, spent the weekend at a golf resort he owns there. Trump heads into the summit with little clear agenda other than to strengthen his personal rapport with Putin, which he thinks is crucial to improving relations between Washington and Moscow. Finland has a long legacy of hosting U.S. Soviet and U.S. Russian summits because of its geographic location and perceived neutrality. Back home, news of Russian interference in the 2016 elections continued to dominate the headlines, particularly after the Justice Department announced indictments against 12 Russian military intelligence officials suspected of hacking. National Security Advisor John Bolton says Trump has a stronger hand going into the Russia summit because of the charges against the 12 Russian military intelligence officials. Bolton tells ABC's This Week on Sunday that the indictments show that the American justice system is aware of Russian efforts to meddle in U.S. elections. He says Trump can now say to Putin that this is a serious matter that we need to talk about. Trump has said he will raise the issue when he sits down with Putin in Helsinki on Monday. Bolton also says he finds it hard to believe that the Russian intelligence officials could conduct such an operation without Putin's knowledge. Earlier on Sunday, Trump said nothing bad. Maybe some good will come out of his summit with Putin. Trump says in a television interview that he's going into the meeting with low expectations. I'm not going with high expectations. The president also tells CBS News that he hadn't thought about asking Putin to extradite the dozen Russian military intelligence officers indicted this past week in Washington on charges related to the hacking of Democratic targets in the 2016 U.S. election, but says that certainly I'll be asking about. A Queensland woman dubbed the world's hottest granny doesn't care that she may soon lose thousands of followers on social media due to plans to get her breast implants removed. Of the 84,000 followers Gold Coast grandmother Gina Stewart has attracted on Instagram in the space of 5 months, she estimates 90% are men, thanks to her double E-cup breasts. The recent Miss Maxim Australian finalist, 47, fears her breast implants making her sick and are to blame for a series of ongoing health issues. They will probably delete me, unfollow me and probably be disappointed. I don't know, and I don't really care, Miss Stewart told Sunday Night. It's not about the size of my breasts anymore. It's about my health. The mother of 4 said she was judged and bullied about her B-cup breasts before she got $10,000 breast implants. Once I got the implants, I thought that it was going to make me the happiest girl in the whole world. Now that I've got breasts, I still get judged, she said. Miss Stewart says breast implants haven't made her happier or healthier. She also suffers from panic attacks and depression and has left her house 20 times in the last year. I'm very fatigued. I get anxiety. I get sick a lot. I get the flu, coughs and colds, just feel lethargic all the time, she told Sunday Night. Her decision has been validated after recently meeting celebrity chef Pete Evans' wife Nicola Robinson, whose life has changed since having her implants removed for the same health reasons. Miss Stewart told Instagram followers that she agreed to share her story on national television to help as many women as possible. This is a very controversial subject and it's going to get a lot of media attention. My advice to any women thinking of getting breast implants is please don't do it, she posted. She has since been inundated with messages of support from male and female followers. Congratulations on not caring what people think about you removing your implants. Health is more important, one man commented. Another added. A film charting the life of the most notorious footballing fraud in the history of the game has been released. Carlos Henrique Raposo, known as Carlos Kaiser because of his self-professed similarity to Germany legend Franz Beckenbauer, played for top clubs in South America, the US and Europe. But, astonishingly, the Brazilian made 0 appearances, scored 0 goals and provided 0 assists throughout his entire 26-year career. Scroll down for video. A new documentary, Kaiser, the greatest footballer to never play football, reveals the hilarious tactics employed by Raposo, now 55, so he could avoid playing football. His primary method was to sign for a club and then get injured in his first training session. As a consequence, he would be sidelined for weeks or months. When teams grew weary of him, he simply moved on. He pulled off his tricks at top Brazilian sides Flamengo, Botafogo, Bang, Fluminense and Vasco da Gama, as well as French team Gazelic Ajaccio and El Paso Six-Shooters in Texas. But the Kaiser was also excellent at fooling celebrities, including Brazilian superstar footballers like Romario, Carlos Alberto, Bebeto and Zico, and manipulating journalists. He would send reporters a video showing his goals, which were actually scored by someone resembling him, and persuade them to write glowing articles about him. If the owner of a team he had fooled into signing him was present during a training session, he would bribe fans to cheer his name. He even paid youth team players to make bad tackles on him during training so he could avoid revealing his talentlessness. On one occasion, When he was told he would be coming off the bench for Bang when the team was losing 2-0, he jumped onto a fence and shouted abuse at booing fans. He was immediately given a red card and so avoided being exposed. On 4 separate occasions, he claimed he could not play because his grandmother had died. In a book by Rob Smythe about Raposo, which has been released with the documentary, authentic Brazilian star Bebeto explained how his then friend managed to pull off the deceit. His chat was so good that if you let him open his mouth, that would be it, Bebeto said. He'd charm you. You couldn't avoid it. That would be it. The Kaiser was also said to be excellent with women. The man himself claims to have bedded over 1,000. Despite being regarded as something of a villainous figure by many fans, Raposo himself said he sees himself as a victim. Speaking to the Mirror, he said, "I always thought I'd been adopted, but I found out from my cousin that my adoptive mother, Lena, had stolen me from my mother when I was 7 days old. My real mother thinks I'm dead. Lena was a cruel person who, when I was 10, put me into a football school and forced me to play to make her rich. But from that moment on, I hated football. I did everything I could to not play, from the age of 10 until the day I never had to play again. Psychologists have told me that's the reason I did what I did. I was never a bad person. I consider myself a survivor." His scam was possible because as a 16-year-old he was given a trial at Puebla FC in Mexico after 6 months after my mother, Pamela, was diagnosed with vascular dementia. She took to her bed. It was an exceptionally cold winter, so it was a sensible place for retreat. But that's where she remained until her death more than 3 years later, at the age of 94. She no longer participated in life or expressed an interest in any activity. If you chose the right subjects, it was possible to have conversations about the past in which she was fluent and kept her ironic sense of humor, but her engagement with the world and the present had come to an end. She had been a journalist, and had always described her time as a sub-editor, features and beauty editor in the 50s as the happiest time of her life. She worked for a magazine called Housewife, published by Hulton Press, whose more famous publications included Picture Post and Lilliput. She loved editing and was skilled at honing a text. She was a talented writer, too, who wrote a series of children's stories for me and my brothers and sister that I have never forgotten. They were about a family on the breadline who discover their fridge miraculously filled with food. She sadly never completed the autobiographical novel she had struggled to write, which charted her traumatic early life from a neglected childhood in Weimar Germany to her parents' abandonment of her in an English boarding school, where she remained even during holidays. Her father, a German Jewish journalist, had been a trainee reporter at the Daily Mail in England before World War I. With dementia, the written world had also vanished. My mother showed no desire to read or enjoy any entertainment. Her short-term memory had gone, so it was likely that she would find it impossible to follow a story in any case. Dementia cocooned her in a perpetual repeating loop, where she believed she was in bed recovering from an illness, and had only been there for a few days. The delusion was perhaps a mercy. In the early days of the disease she would tell me of terrifying hallucinatory journeys that she said she would not have wished upon an enemy. Once, she vividly told me it was like being trapped behind a gate and that no one could hear her on the other side. One day I decided to try to read to her, as an experiment. I did not expect it to work, thinking that she would lose track of the narrative. To my astonishment, not only was she able to follow the story, she discussed it with me, too. There was an oasis in her brain where her love of words, Her critical appreciation and her emotional response to literature were entirely unimpaired. Over the next 3 years, every Saturday afternoon, I would sit and read to her, mostly short stories, Chekhov, Alice Munro, John Cheever, Raymond Carver. We read all of Dickens's Christmas stories, including The Chimes and The Cricket on the Hearth, though she thought the better-known A Christmas Carol far superior. We also read Roald Dahl's autobiographies, Stella Gibbons's Cold Comfort Farm and Philip Larkin's poems. The discovery transformed my time with her. Though dementia had reduced her to a childlike state with her vulnerability and need for protection, on those afternoons her intellectual capacity surpassed mine. I remember often wondering aloud about an archaic word in Dickens. She instantly responded with the meaning. She also remained highly selective in what she wanted to hear. One day I arrived with a copy of a newspaper supplement with a special short story edition. Within minutes, she looked at me wearily, and impressed by the quality of the writing, and asked me to find something else to read to her. There is great comfort and companionship in being read to and reading to someone. I remembered the captivation of her undivided attention when she had read to me as a child in her richly resonant voice, transporting me to other worlds that suspended time for the length of the story. Now that I was the reader, taking her to places she could not reach alone, just as she had done for me when I could not read, it was not so much a return to childhood as the completion of a cycle. 1 meter Brits will be diagnosed with dementia by 2025. Though I had always feared having to care for her in her old age, to my surprise the reversal of roles felt like the natural order of things, demanding a depth of compassion and patience I had not known I was capable of giving her. My father, the football writer and novelist Brian Glanville, who was 10 years younger than my mother, was the main carer. My contribution was a side dish in comparison. How is it possible that my mother's response to literature had survived, when dementia had ravaged the cognitive abilities necessary for her to lead her life? I have since discovered it is not an isolated incident. The Reader, a charity based in Liverpool, has been running reading groups for people living with dementia for 12 years. Kate McDonnell, head of reading excellence at the charity, told me that when she ran the first dementia reading group, she had not expected it to be successful. She recalls reading a Roald Dahl story aloud first and remembers the bewilderment of a male care home resident, a former headmaster, who declared that it was a puzzle. She then read Robert Burns's poem A Red, Red Rose. It was like an electric current had gone round the room, she says. An incredible thing had happened. People who could not remember their own names or those of their children were responding to the poem. One even sang it. The man who could not follow the Dahl story told her, "The language is so simple. No verbosity." The Reader now runs more than 50 groups in care homes across the country. The Center for Research into Reading, Information and Linguistic Systems at Liverpool University published a study in 2012 which demonstrated the positive impact of reading, including a significant reduction in the severity of dementia symptoms. Professor Philip Davis, director of the center, told me he was particularly surprised that participants in the reading groups had new responses to what they heard. It was not simply memories that were triggered by the reading, but fresh thoughts, too. The advantage of poetic language, of any language that is strong, is that it triggers the articulation of memories, feelings and thought, he says. This is a re-education, as it says there's still something that is latent. You have to be patient and also produce the triggers. For some, this may be alarming rather than encouraging news. It is terrifying to think your grandparent, mother, father, husband or wife could be stranded within their own internal world unless someone makes a concerted attempt to communicate. It may also make us feel deeply guilty if we cannot give the time or attention to a relative with dementia, or would rather give the job of their care to someone else. Full-time carers may not have the energy left to find out whether reading might reawaken a buried response. My mother would ask my father to fetch something for her from the kitchen, 2 floors down from her bedroom, then forget what she had requested and panic in his absence, screaming for him hysterically. As he toiled up and down the stairs, he described himself in resigned good humor as the slave of the lamp, like the genie in Aladdin. My mother had run the household, shopping and cooking for my father throughout their marriage of more than 50 years. For the first time, my father had to prepare meals, cordon noir, as he wittily called it. He would put music on for her. Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Peggy Lee, and Flanders and Swan were favorites, as well as Marlene Dietrich, but he left the reading to me on my weekly visits when he was out reporting on a football match. He was still working in his 80s. 6 months before my mother's death, I noticed she was starting to find it hard to follow a story, nearly 3 years since we had begun our Saturday readings. I was losing her. I would stop and remind her of the plot, but I think we both found it more distressing than enjoyable. I felt as if I was giving her a test and possibly adding to the bewilderment she already experienced from dementia. So I stopped reading and would listen to music with her instead. By Christmas she was in hospital with an infection, in a delirious state. She described seeing children popping out of drawers or running across the ceiling. At other times, she was unresponsive and would sleep for hours. Then I found a book on cats by Doris Lessing. It was a short and sentimental book about the many cats she had owned, written in as much engaging detail as if the creatures were human personalities. My mother loved cats throughout her decline. She never forgot about my own cat and always asked about her. She had reached extreme old age at the same time as my mother, and died a few months before her at 19. So I sat by my mother's hospital bed and read the cat stories to her. Once again, it was as if she was cured of dementia during the reading. She was attentive and absorbed, and she laughed and asked questions. After my mother's death, I wanted to try to find out how this island of intelligence and awareness had survived in her brain. I visited Professor Alexander Leff, a neurologist at University College London, who researches the loss of language in speaking and reading. My mother's career as a journalist, and her lifelong love of words and books, could have helped her response to language to survive, he told me. But I was interested. A family of 4 were injured after a propane tank exploded in their kitchen in East China. Shocking video footage of the incident on Tuesday shows a massive blast shattering the windows of the second-floor home in Jiaxing City, sending glass and debris flying into the street below. The couple and their 2 young daughters suffered injuries and are currently being treated in hospital. The blast, reportedly caused by a gas leak, blew out the windows, walls and some of the furniture from the home. There was extensive damage to the flat even though there was no fire. Residents across the street also had their windows shattered and doors wrecked by the shockwave of the explosion. 5 fire engines and 30 firefighters were alerted to the scene in Zhuzhou district at 6:28 a.m., according to CCTV. The family of 4 from Hebei province are currently being treated at Jiaxing Hospital of Traditional Chinese Medicine. It is unclear whether the gas cylinder was in use at the time of the accident as the incident remains under investigation. The fire department would like to warn members of the public to regularly check their gas tanks and replace faulty valves and pipes. If a gas leak is detected, residents should open all windows and doors to ensure ventilation. A video captures the amazing moment a python swallows a deer whole before regurgitating its meal. The Indian rock python stretches its jaws and swallows its prey, before spitting its dinner out. Wildlife photographer and conservationist, Sarosh Lodhi, from central India, shot the footage in Kanha National Park. Sarosh, 44, says, "I was 4 meters away from the snake and spotted it after a few other tourists directed me." The Indian rock python was easily around 3.5 meters long. "But I never felt scared as it already had its mouth full." At first, the python swallows the spotted deer, but then it suddenly backed out, regurgitating its kill. There were wild dogs nearby, and the movement of other carnivores in the vicinity may have made the python do so. It took the python just 25 seconds to bring its meal back up. Despite years of experience as a photograph, Sarosh has never seen this encounter before. He says, "For the last 2 decades of my wildlife experience, this was the first time I've witnessed something so spectacular. A python regurgitating is rare to witness. I sacrificed a tiger sighting close by to video this extremely rare moment. Although I feel sad for the deer, it's the law of nature. I feel extremely lucky for having shot this video." The Indian rock python is a non-venomous snake that can grow over 7 meters long. Their eyesight is extremely poor, but they track their prey by its body. Scientists tracking a massive iceberg that broke free from Antarctica's Larsen Sea ice shelf last year say dense ice cover has so far prevented it from drifting far out to sea. An animation showing its movement over the last few months reveals how the trillion-plus-ton iceberg A68 has shifted as it's battered by ocean currents, tides, and winds in the Weddell Sea. While the huge chunk of ice, estimated to be about the size of Delaware, has moved around some, the experts say its surroundings have kept it somewhat locked into place. Scroll down for video. An animation showing its movement over the last few months reveals how the trillion-plus-ton iceberg A68 has shifted as it's battered by ocean currents, tides, and winds in the Weddell Sea. Iceberg A68 is the 6th largest iceberg on record since scientists began keeping track, and its separation from the ice shelf sparked fears about its future impacts on global sea levels. Despite all the activity in the Weddell Sea, its northern end has repeatedly been grounded in shallower water near Baden ice rise, according to Project Midas researchers, who have been monitoring the iceberg over the last year. These groundings led eventually to further pieces of the iceberg being shattered off in May 2018. Whilst not quite large enough to be given labels themselves, the total area of icebergs lost from A68 in May was the size of a small city. Earlier this year, scientists released the first ever footage of A68 single quote, "a trillion-ton iceberg the size of Delaware that has broken off from Antarctica." Stunning aerial clips capture the huge crack in Antarctica's Larsen Sea ice shelf that led to the 3rd largest iceberg ever recorded breaking off from the continent last July. When A68 separated from Larsen Sea, it revealed an ocean hidden under the ice shelf for 120,000 years, and a team of scientists are now studying the region to uncover some of the hidden ecosystem's mysteries. Led by the Cambridge-based British Antarctic Survey (BUZZ), the group will study tiny animals, microbes and plankton on the seafloor to see how they cope with severe changes to their environment. As part of preliminary research for the trip, the team have taken aerial footage of the iceberg to monitor how far it has drifted to sea, the very first video captured of the berg since it calved from Larsen Sea last year. Marine biologist Dr. Katrine Lintz, the BUZZ researcher leading the mission, said, "The calving of A68 provides us with a unique opportunity to study marine life as it responds to a dramatic environmental change." It's important we get there quickly before the undersea environment changes as sunlight enters the water and new species begin to colonize. We've put together a team with a wide range of scientific skills so that we can collect as much information as possible in a short time. It's very exciting. The scientists are traveling by ship to collect samples from the newly exposed seabed, which covers an area of around 2,250 square miles, 5,800 square kilometers. In July 2017, a huge crack in Antarctica's Larsen Sea ice shelf caused a trillion-ton iceberg, the third biggest ever recorded, to break off from the icy southern continent. The huge chunk of ice, dubbed Iceberg A68, measures 5,800 square kilometers, 2,240 square miles, making it around the size of Delaware, or 4 times the area covered by Greater London. Since the 68 broke away, it has remained unclear what will happen to the giant mass, with fears it could break up into pieces too small to track on satellite, and drift into shipping lanes. Experts have found that cracks are still growing on Larsen Sea, and if they continue to grow, it's possible that the ice shelf could collapse. If all of Larsen Sea collapses, the ice it holds back might add another 4 inches, 10 centimeters, to global sea levels over the years. Many scientists argue that a calving event was not necessarily due to climate change. Instead, it may simply reflect the natural growth and decay cycle of an ice shelf. The team says their mission is urgent because the ecosystem that's likely hidden beneath the ice for thousands of years may change as sunlight starts to alter the surface layers of the sea. The team will investigate the area previously under the ice shelf by collecting seafloor animals, microbes, plankton, sediments and water samples using a range of equipment including video cameras and a special sledge pulled along the seafloor to collect tiny animals. They will also record any marine mammals and birds that might have moved into the area. Their findings will provide a picture of what life under the ice shelf was like so changes to the ecosystem can be tracked. A 68 is 620 feet, 190 meters, thick from top to bottom, with just 100 feet, 30 meters, of it is visible above the ocean. The iceberg was formed by a single crack along Larsen Sea, its parent ice shelf, and makes up a little over 10% of the shelf. BA's researchers flew around the iceberg to get a better view of it as it drifts into the Weddell Sea. This newly exposed marine area is the first to benefit from an international agreement made in 2016 by the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, Caregiver. This agreement designates special areas for scientific study in newly exposed marine areas following the collapse or retreat of ice shelves across the Antarctic Peninsula region. The agreement came following a European Union proposal to Caregiver, led by BA's scientists. Professor David Vaughan, science director at BA's, said, "The calving of a 68 offers a new and unprecedented opportunity to establish an interdisciplinary scientific research program in this climate-sensitive region. Now is the time to address fundamental questions about the sustainability of polar continental shelves under climate change. We need to be bold on this one. Larsen Sea is a long way south and there's lots of... The shelters where immigrant youths are held can be hotbeds of sexual abuse and violence, despite claims by the Trump administration that they are safe havens for children in government custody, according to a report released Friday. A new investigation reveals hundreds of incidences of sexual abuse, violence and missing children at shelters where immigrant youths are held in custody of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement. The ProPublica investigation, drawing on 5 years of data, is based on thousands of pages of state public records from more than 70 of the roughly 100 of the agency's immigrant youth shelters. The shelters are located in 17 states and house about 10,000 children and teens. About 17% were younger age 13 in 2017. Experts say that the children are often already vulnerable after fleeing violence in their home country and that, coupled with a sense of isolation, can be a desirable hunting ground for abusers. If you're a predator, it's a goldmine, said Lisa Fortuna, director of child and adolescent psychiatry at Boston Medical Center, in an interview with ProPublica. You have full access and then you have kids that have already had this history of being victimized. In one instance at a Tucson, Arizona shelter, a 15-year-old Honduran boy woke up one morning in 2015 to find an employee tickling his chest and stomach. The worker left when the boy asked what he was doing, but returned 2 more times to rub the teenager's genitals through his clothing and attempt to reach underneath the boy's boxer shorts. The 46-year-old employee was later convicted of molestation. In another instance, a 17-year-old boy, also from Honduras, awoke from a surgical procedure in 2017 to find a male staff member standing above him. The man commented on the size of the teen's genitals and pursued the boy until he locked himself in a bathroom to avoid the worker. While the facilities that house these children have come under more scrutiny since the Trump administration started and stopped separating children from their parents at the borders, stories like these have existed at the youth shelters for years, according to the investigation. Experts say the recent influx of children to the facilities has only put more pressure on staff and a system that are already far from perfect. HHS issued a statement to ProPublica saying it has a zero-tolerance policy for all forms of sexual abuse or inappropriate behavior at the shelters. Nonetheless, records show that police have responded to at least 125 reports of sexual offenses at facilities that predominantly serve immigrant children. An additional 200 calls were made to more than a dozen other shelters that care for at-risk youth. The records don't distinguish how many of those were related to immigrant children versus American youths. Records don't indicate whether any of the children affected had been separated from their parents at the border, but they did include several instances involving children as young as 6 years old. Flyers may have a tough time recovering damages for invasive screenings at U.S. airport security checkpoints, after a federal appeals court said screeners are immune from claims. On Wednesday, the court ruled that Transportation Security Administration (TSA) screeners are now protected under a federal law governing from claims of assaults, false arrests and other abuses. In a 2-1 vote, the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia said the screeners at TSA were not investigative or law enforcement officers, and were therefore shielded from liability under the Federal Tort Claims Act (FCA). The majority said it was sympathetic to concerns that its decision would leave flyers with very limited legal redress for alleged mistreatment by aggressive or overzealous screeners, which adds to the ordinary stresses of air travel. For most people, TSA screenings are an unavoidable feature of flying, but it is squarely in the realm of Congress to expand liability for abuses, Circuit Judge Cheryl Ann Cross wrote. The FCA generally affords the government sovereign immunity when employees commit intentional torts, a type of civil wrong. Wednesday's decision was the first by a federal appeals court on whether a waiver of immunity for investigative and law enforcement officers extended to screeners. It was a defeat for Nadine Pellegrino, a business consultant from Boca Raton, Florida. She and her husband had sued for false arrest, false imprisonment and malicious prosecution over a July 2006 altercation at Philadelphia International Airport. Pellegrino, who represented herself, said she was reviewing the decision. U.S. Attorney William McSwain in Philadelphia, whose office defended TSA screeners, said the decision reflected Congress' desire to balance the government's sovereign immunity and duty to protect taxpayer dollars against the need to provide remedies for some plaintiffs. The Third Circuit hears appeals from Delaware, New Jersey and Pennsylvania. According to court papers, Pellegrino had been randomly selected for additional screening at the Philadelphia airport before boarding a U.S. Airways flight to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Pellegrino, then 57, objected to the invasiveness of the screening, but conditions deteriorated and she was eventually jailed for about 18 hours and criminally charged, the papers show. She was acquitted at a March 2008 trial. Circuit Judge Thomas Ambrose dissented from Wednesday's decision, faulting the majority for barring victims of TSA abuses from recoveries by analogizing TSA searches to routine administrative inspections. Last August, the same court threw out a First Amendment claim by an architect, Roger van der Klok, who said he was arrested in retaliation for asking to file a complaint against an ill-tempered TSA supervisor. The case is Pellegrino et al. v. U.S. Transportation Security Administration et al., 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, No. 15-3047. A Texas man has spent 17 years traveling the world researching how different cultures have embraced lawriding, the practice of lowering cars, painting them in brightly colored, bold designs and driving them low and slow. Lawriding originated in Los Angeles in the 1950s, but Luke Dorset has seen the cars, and the fanatics, in Japan, Taiwan, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, and China. Dorset says it was his time in Japan that inspired him to share what he had seen with the world, and releases photographs, some of which have been published on Facebook and on his website, in a book. I was walking in the street late night in Hiroshima and happened to see a 1964 Chevy Impala convertible lowrider parked in front of a convenience store with its engine running, he said. I waited for about 10 minutes until the owner and his friend came out, interested to see what kind of person owned the car. To my surprise, the owner looked very similar to me. He had a shaved head like myself at the time, and a similar type of clothing. When Dorset questioned the man about his car, he was told to ask the man who built the vehicle. The 38-year-old went to meet him the next day, and decided to start looking for other countries that had embraced lowriding. Though he's traveled the world, Dorset has been back to Japan 11 more times, and become immersed in how the country has taken lawriding and turned it into something of their own. You have two cultures that are into handcrafted art, they're both very oriented to detail, he told CNN. He said while Japan was initially importing pre-designed lowriders from California, the designs on the cars began to reflect Japanese culture. When it first started in Japan, the cars would go over there and look exactly the same as in America. They wouldn't modify them or change. A gas station in Hendersonville, Tennessee was completely overwhelmed by a swarm of insects on Tuesday. A woman caught the infestation on camera and provided commentary as she tried to figure out exactly what she was looking at. "Do you'll see this?" the woman says from behind the camera. "This is so frickin' creepy." The video footage shows a massive amount of insects covering gas pumps and swarming towards the lights at the gas station. The buzzing can be heard from inside the woman's car, who is shocked at the sight. "Oh, my God. I saw these all over the..." she starts to say, but trails off, as she can't find the right words because she's in such disbelief. "Oh, my God," she says again, with a laugh, pulling forward toward the gas pump. "We're all, like, trying to figure out what it is. As she silently takes in the scene for a moment, she ventures a guess at what the insects might be. Is it a locust or what? She asks out loud. What the hell is that, you guys? She asks out loud again after a moment, but it's unclear who she's talking to because there doesn't seem to be anyone else in the car with her. Others can be seen coming and going in the parking lot, as the bugs show no sign of going anywhere, anytime soon. I saw these things all over the intersta. Huh. Oh, my word. She says, again trailing off, at a loss for words. And somebody's out there, she says, noticing a man filling up his gas tank, despite the crawling creatures that have taken up shop at the gas station. What is he thinking, pumping gas in this? There's no way. She shrieks loudly as the insects start landing on her vehicle. They're trying to get in my car, she says, seemingly terrified. That is a gas pump and a pole and another gas pump, she said, panning her. Shocking items confiscated from the National Wildlife Property Repository reveal the chilling items from a tiger fetus to thigh-high boots made of cobra skin that sold on the black market. These items, taken from ports across the U.S., are stored in a 16,000-square-foot warehouse in Denver, Colorado in a secure environment and are used to aid in teaching about conservation efforts as well as endangered species. The macabre items span a baby rhino foot converted into a pencil holder, stuffed baby leopards, a bald eagle head, and an elephant footstool. The various items reveal an inside look at the multi-billion-dollar illegal wildlife trade that converts animals, many of them endangered or threatened species, into powders, clothing items, or stuffed animals. From cobra skin boots, python purses, animal talons and a rhino head, the repository is a glimpse of an eerie, evil zoo. The repository holds more than 1.3 million illegal items seized through ports across the nation. Even if you don't find it attractive, somebody does. There are many different value systems. But the use doesn't matter, it's the impact on the species. Sarah Metzer, the education specialist at the National Wildlife Property Repository, said to the Los Angeles Times. The repository was established in 1995 and mostly serves to educate on poaching and illegal trafficking, but is also used for tracking and cataloging the items that pass through the black market. My goal is to have people see the sheer volume of what we have here. We are not talking about one shark or one turtle. We have 1.3 million items, and that's just here. And it's a small fraction of what is seized each year, Metzer said. Many of the items are disposed of once they are confiscated, but others are sent to the repository for educational purposes. In this way, Metzer says she speaks for animals that don't have a voice. We want these animals to have a new life. One that connects them to people in a new way, she said. Despite bans on ivory and the international limits on hunting, the sales of these contraband items continues to grow. According to the World Wildlife Fund, illegal wildlife trafficking is worth $20 billion annually. These are huge numbers. You don't see these kinds of illicit flows unless there is organized crime and corruption involved, Rachel Kramer of the World Wildlife Fund said. Wildlife monitoring group Traffic says that the trade travels from entrenched criminal syndicates of Chinese origin to South Africa in producing bracelets, powders and beads made of rhino horns and other parts of endangered animals. But the problem doesn't just lie in Asia and Africa, the US plays a role too. The US market is consumer-based, it's a transit point and a source for certain species, like freshwater turtles. A U.S. national was convicted for trafficking in North American box and spotted turtles to Asia. Bear parts are also a problem, Kramer said. American bears, she says, are poached for their paws and gallbladders, which is used for medicinal purposes. Other bizarre remedies housed at the repository include toad venom, leopard bone which allegedly promotes blood circulation, powdered seahorses and rhino pills, thought to combat laryngitis. We are not here to tell people that traditional medicine is wrong. We are here to tell them that a rural Iowa co-op has offered a $1,000 reward for any information leading to the whereabouts of a 20-year-old student who has been missing for more than a week. Molly Tibbetts went out for a jog on July 18 and hasn't been seen since, sparking an extensive search in the town of Brooklyn, Iowa. Investigators revealed Friday they had searched a pig farm about 15 minutes from Molly's home after receiving a tip, but found no sign of the missing University of Iowa freshman. Since then, the T.I.P. Rural Electric Cooperative announced that the company added $1,000 to the existing Crime Stoppers of Central Iowa reward of $1,000. The $2,000 reward will be offered for information that would lead to an arrest or conviction related to Molly's disappearance. Despite the latest unsuccessful search, Molly's mother Laura Calderwood is doing her best to stay positive. If it were me that were missing, Molly wouldn't give up hope. That's not even a thought, she told ABC News. You won't see me giving up hope. That's not an option. Scroll down for video. Calderwood said she received a phone call from her son Scott on July 18 asking if she knew Molly hadn't gone into work that day. Molly's mother said skipping work without letting anyone know was so out of character for her daughter, whom Calderwood described as an outgoing, fun, loving loving person. There were alarms going off immediately, Calderwood said. Within 15 to 20 minutes of me coming home, there were a bunch of her friends and I could see they were worried. Within 15 to 20 minutes, I called 911. Molly was last seen near her boyfriend's home in Brooklyn, where she was staying to watch his dogs while he was out of town. Authorities said Molly's boyfriend has been ruled out as a suspect. Shortly after Molly was reported missing, a witness claimed to have spotted the 120-pound student jogging through cornfields wearing gym shorts, a black sports bra and running shoes. After combing every field, barn and shed in the rural area for almost a week, local police called in for backup from the FBI on Tuesday. Federal officials announced they were zeroing in on Molly's internet footprint, keeping tabs on her social media accounts and analyzing activity recorded by her Fitbit tracker. We are getting a lot of information back from that process. We are very hopeful with the electronic data we are getting back, said Mitch Mortv, Assistant Director of the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation. We are relying on the FBI heavily because it's an ever-changing world in technology. Mortv said officials have little to go on, but they're leaning more and more towards something happening to her against her will. He added that investigators welcome the help of volunteer search parties, saying, "We'd like to get any information we can. The more eyes and ears we have, the better." Calderwood has thanked the community for coming to her family's aid last week. "The community has gone above and beyond," she said. Israel carried out wide-scale airstrikes and deployed tanks against militant sites in Gaza, killing 4 Palestinians on Friday after gunmen shot at soldiers near the border, officials said. Israel's military said it struck 8 Hamas positions after its soldiers came under fire, before later claiming fighter jets commenced a wide-scale attack against Hamas military targets throughout the Gaza Strip. The military has not commented on the condition of the soldiers shot, but has described the attack as severe. It said Hamas chose to escalate the security situation and will bear the consequences for its actions. The Gaza Health Ministry said 4 Palestinians were killed. The militant Islamic Hamas that rules Gaza said 3 of the Palestinians killed were members of the group. Gaza media reported that gunmen had fired mortars toward the border. Earlier Friday, Israel's defense minister Avigdor Lieberman visited Sderot, an Israeli town near Gaza that has been hard hit by Palestinian rockets over the years. The heads of Hamas are forcibly leading us to a no-choice situation in which we will need to embark on wide and painful military operation, Lieberman said. On Saturday, Israel pounded Hamas targets in its largest bombardment campaign since the 2014 war, as Gaza militants fired dozens of rockets toward Israel. Israel says it has no interest in engaging in another war with Hamas, but says it will no longer tolerate the Gaza militant campaign of daily flying incendiary kites and balloons across the border that have torched Israeli crops, burned nature reserves and killed wildlife. Hamas today vowed to continue weekly protests and the launching of incendiary devices at Israel. Khalil al-Hayya, a top Hamas leader, said the protests will remain flaming and existing, and its tools will multiply and diversify, including kites, until our goals are achieved. For the first time, an incendiary balloon of the kind used in Gaza was found in the garden of southeast Jerusalem home close to the Palestinian town of Beit Yaala. Police sappers dealt with the device. The weekly protests led by Gaza's Hamas rulers against Israel are meant in part to draw attention to the Israeli-Egyptian blockade imposed after the militant group assumed control of Gaza in 2007. The demonstrations have been fueled in large part by pervasive despair caused by the blockade, which has caused widespread economic hardship. Over 135. Israel said it has delivered the strongest blow against Hamas since 2014 with dozens of airstrikes, after Gaza militant groups fired more than 100 rockets across the border. A ceasefire was agreed on Saturday, but several hours after the announcement, the Israeli military responded after Palestinians fired 2 mortar bombs towards Israel. Palestinian health officials said earlier that 2 teenagers had been killed on Saturday, in one of more than 40 airstrikes carried out by the Israeli military since Friday over Gaza. Meanwhile, police in Gaza said they are investigating the cause of a blast which killed a man and his son in the enclave on Sunday. The explosion came hours after the ceasefire, but there was no suggestion that Israel was responsible. An explosion took place this morning in a house west of Gaza City, police spokesman Ayman al-Batniji said. He gave their ages as 35 and 13. The police launched an investigation into the cause of the explosion. Speaking about the latest airstrikes, Hamas spokesman Fawzi Barhoum told Reuters, efforts by many parties have continued since the beginning of the escalation and the Israeli bombardment on Gaza. They were crowned by the success of the Egyptian effort to restore calm and end the escalation. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad militant group said in a separate statement that a truce had been reached. A senior Israeli defense official said, "Only the facts on the ground will dictate our further response." The surge in violence followed mounting public criticism of Netanyahu over his failure to counter a new Palestinian tactic, incendiary kites and balloons launched from Gaza that have burned crops and scrubland in southern Israel. Israeli military said some 100 rockets were launched from Gaza at southern Israel, where many residents have reinforced rooms in their homes, but have only seconds to reach them between the sirens and missiles landing. Some of the projectiles were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome system, but police said 3 people had been wounded in the southern town of Sderot. After consultations with the defense minister, The chief of staff and Israel's top defense officials, "We decided on powerful action against Hamas terrorism," Netanyahu said in a video statement. The Israeli armed forces delivered the strongest blow against Hamas since the 2014 Gaza war, and we will increase the intensity of our attacks as necessary. Intelligence Minister Israel Katz said the latest airstrike should not be seen as the start of a military campaign against the Palestinian territory. "We are not in a military operation. The activity we are engaged in now sends a message that Israel will not tolerate rockets, explosive devices, mortar bombs or incendiary kites," Katz said on Israel's Channel 12 TV. "The action we are taking draws a clear red line, that from now on, we will not allow this." Blasts from Israel's airstrikes shook homes and shattered windows in Gaza, where plumes of smoke rose from the sites of the explosions. The Israeli military said one airstrike had hit a high-rise building in al-Shadi refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip, describing the target as a Hamas urban warfare training facility with a tunnel underneath. Health officials in Gaza said the building was empty, but two Palestinians aged 15 and 16, among a crowd in a nearby public park, were killed. Around 10 other passers-by were wounded, the officials said. Nearby houses were damaged. Israeli military spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus said the military had warned people before the attack to leave the area. "We have no intention to harm anyone who is not a terrorist," he said. Rocket warning sirens went off in the Israeli coastal city of Ashkelon, about 12 kilometers (7 miles) from the enclave, further north than in recent attacks. A police spokesman said no hits had been recorded in the city. Hamas stopped short of claiming responsibility for the rocket fire, but Barhoum earlier called it an immediate response by the resistance to the escalation by Israel and a deterrence to further Israeli attacks. "Bombardment for bombardment," he said. The fighting began on Friday, when thousands of Palestinians gathered at the Israel-Gaza border area for weekly protests that have now entered their fourth month. The Israeli military said Friday's protesters were throwing burning tires, stones, explosive devices and fire bombs at its soldiers, and that one of its officers was wounded. An Italian acid attack survivor has released horrifying images taken days after he claims an ex-girlfriend threw a bucket of acid on his face. William Pezzullo, 33, has since undergone 33 surgeries including 11 skin graft operations after the ambush left him blind in one eye. With acid attacks on the rise in the UK, he is releasing the photographs to raise awareness of the impact the attack has caused on his life. On September 19, 2012, Pezzullo, from Brescia was entering his friend's house when he was confronted by two people wearing dark clothes whose faces were covered. One of them put an arm around my neck and grabbed my hair and held my head up, whilst the other person threw a bucket of acid on me. At that moment I only remember a lot of burning and my clothes had corroded. My vision was already compromised at this point. My whole life changed after that bucket of sulfuric acid was thrown on me, and I know it will never be the same again. The damage the acid caused left Pezzullo blind in his left eye, with blurred vision in his right eye, loss of scalp and lost the earbuds in his ears. The photos show the burns that I had, which are third-degree burns to 45% of the body. The burns initially turned my body gray and then slowly started to scar, leaving me with scars all over my face and upper body. Despite having 33 surgeries, 11 of which being skin grafts to try and save my corroded skin, I still look completely different to how I once did before. I hate how I look. I haven't even left my house in 5 years. But it is amazing to see how far I have come from the photos of me lying in hospital. Petsulo, who was formerly a bar owner before the attack, is now registered as disabled and can no longer work. He is fundraising to help cover the cost of hospital bills and legal fees, and to help get his life back on track. Parodi was sentenced to 8 years in jail after confessing to the attack, as well as a further 18 months for stalking Petsulo, but local reports suggest she has since been released. Bertelli is still serving a 10-year sentence. Petsulo's story. Italy's hardline government has allowed 2 migrant rescue ships to dock and disembark after other European countries offered to host the asylum seekers. But none of the 450 rescued from a fishing boat in the Mediterranean last week are welcome in the Czech Republic, which slammed Italy's plan to distribute migrants among a handful of countries as the road to hell. Italy's hardline, anti-migrant government had kept the 2 military ships from docking at Pozzolo. It asked other countries to step up, rather than Italy alone bearing the responsibility of processing all of the asylum claims. There was a major breakthrough on Sunday, when Germany, Spain and Portugal each agreed to respectively accept 50 of the migrants, following similar offers by France and Malta. As a result of their pledges, migrants aboard 2 border patrol ships disembarked in a Sicilian port early today, Monday, with passengers screened at dawn. Many women and children had already come ashore. On Saturday, Italy's Premier Giuseppe Conte said that Malta and France had come forward in response to his request to all 27 other members of the European Union to share the burden of welcoming the migrants. It's an important result, Conte wrote on Facebook, along with a copy of the letter he wrote to top European Commission officials demanding that other European countries make good on their verbal pledges to help Italy deal with the influx. The migrants had been aboard a large fishing boat when the Italian and Maltese Coast Guard control centers began squabbling on Friday over who was responsible for taking them in. Malta said it had fulfilled its obligations by monitoring the vessel to see if it needed help. Malta added that the ship's crew made clear they did not need help and were heading toward the Italian island of Lampedusa. However, Italy insisted Malta should have opened its ports to the ship. Then, early Saturday, the migrants were taken off the boat and transferred onto a rescue vessel from the EU border patrol agency Frontex and a ship from the Italian border police. And yesterday, Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Salvini told TV channel Rai News 24 that 16 mothers and 11 children would initially be allowed to disembark. He did not say when the remaining migrants would be allowed to disembark, or when Berlin, Paris, Valletta, Madrid and Lisbon would take the 50 people each, as promised. However, not everyone agreed with providing help to the asylum seekers. The Czech Republic rebuffed Italy's appeal and called the distribution plan a road to hell. Italy, in general, feels that the European Union has left it alone to handle the tens of thousands of migrants coming across the sea every year. Salvini is pressing the EU to step up and take in the migrants who land in Italy and is trying to help Libya prevent them from leaving in the first place. A rescue crew who found the bodies of a dead woman and child floating on a wrecked rubber raft in the Mediterranean are seeking permission to return to Spain, after claiming Italy has refused to accept the corpses. Lifeguards for Spanish NGO Proactiva Open Arms made the horrifying discovery in the central Mediterranean, 80 miles off the coast of Libya, on Tuesday. Astonishingly, one woman who was with the dead was pulled aboard the rescue boat, the Open Arms, seriously ill but alive. Now, rescuers are seeking a port to return to with the corpses of the deceased and the survivor, amid a political storm over refugees in Europe. Italy gave the boat permission to dock in Catania, Sicily, and offered to receive the surviving woman, but the country would not accept the dead bodies, Proactiva said. The group then rejected the offer and instead appealed to Spain, whose new Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has made high-profile gestures to welcome migrants since taking power in June. It is incomprehensible that they agreed to receive the rescued woman, who was suffering from severe hypothermia, but did not show the same willingness for the two corpses, Proactiva said on Twitter. The lone survivor of the three found in the Mediterranean has told how she was aboard a rubber raft with 157 others, attempting to get to Europe. They were intercepted by the Libyan Coast Guard (LCG), whose officers attacked them, she claimed. The LCG, which is backed by the European Union, ordered everyone to get onto their vessel and be taken back to Libya, but the two women and child did not oblige, she said. The Coast Guard then left them to die, as the rest of the group was dragged back to Libya, the Cameroonian woman, named as Josepha, said. She told journalist Annalisa Camilli Libyan guards attacked them and were hitting them after they were found at sea after 2 days and 2 nights. The discovery of the trio has raised questions over the Libyan Coast Guard, who had previously reported rescuing all 158 people on the raft. The EU-backed group failed to mention leaving anyone behind. They later denied the accusation. The Open Arms, currently around 75 nautical miles from the coast of Sicily, will face a 4-day voyage to a Spanish port if Madrid accepts its request. The distance from Catania to Madrid is around 650 nautical miles. Medics have said Proactiva arrived just hours after the male child died. The sea rescue charity founded by veteran lifeguard Oscar Camps has rescued tens of thousands of migrants from the Mediterranean since they began operations there in 2016. However, Malta and Italy have recently opted to seal ports and refused to take would-be refugees from Libya, even accusing the charity of trafficking. Anti-migrant groups say rescuers create a pull factor, but charities argue Libya, from where migrants launch their boats, is so unsafe they will leave regardless. Italian Interior Minister Matteo Salvini labeled footage of the most recent rescues and insults, just a month after the nation refused to allow a boat with 629 migrants to dock on its shore. Mr. Salvini, leader of the right-wing Lega Party and the new deputy prime minister, said in a tweet that victory had been achieved when Spain said it would take the rescued, at the time. Salvini is pushing for Libya's Coast Guard to handle all rescues and take migrants back to Libya, where torture and rape is widely documented. In recent months, horror stories have emerged from the North African nation of families being abused inside camps set up for refugees. There are hundreds of thousands of displaced individuals in the country hoping to head for Europe. Many who have attempted to return to their home nations have been refused re-entry. Militia have control of much of the country outside the capital of Tripoli. Gangs and traffickers can make hundreds of thousands per week in human slavery and passage onto boats, as a result. The Mediterranean between Libya and Italy is known as the Deadly. Firefighters have rescued a raccoon that couldn't get its head out of a mayonnaise jar. The rescue occurred on Thursday in upstate New York, where Ithaca Fire Department rescuers and a State Department of Environmental Conservation officer teamed up to help the raccoon. The raccoon was spotted in a tree outside of a residence with a jar stuck on its head. Fire crews used a ladder to retrieve the animal, and it was isolated in a large plastic tub once on the ground. Photos show the deck officer working to free the animal's head as 2 firefighters look on. The creature was assessed for injuries and found to be healthy, and released back into the wild. Last seen running back to the creek where he lives, The raccoon looked well and thankful. An Ivy League professor who has been accused of sexually harassing a female researcher says Americans are single ***************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************Totally biased against the privileged white males, it has been reported. Gerd Beckert, a professor at Columbia University in New York, and his employer are being sued for $30 million in a Manhattan federal court for alleged harassment of Enriqueta Ravina. The laws in this country are screwed up and totally biased against the privileged white males, Beckert wrote to a colleague. Ravina, a former finance researcher at the university, claims Beckert, who is 11 years older than her, made unwanted advances toward her beginning in September 2012, according to Poets and Quants. Ravina and Beckert, who was her mentor, had been collaborating on academic research projects for more than 2 years at the time. Beckert then made repeated requests for her to join him for dinner, but she declined. Eventually, she relented, although she made clear this was to remain a professional relationship. Ravina said that at the dinner, Beckert asked me if I had a boyfriend and if I lived with him. I said, "Look, this is a dinner among colleagues and I appreciate our work together and want to continue to work together." He started laughing. After the dinner, Ravina says that Beckert gave her a ride home in a taxi. As she started to exit the taxi at her destination, he put his hand on my back and slid it down, she claims. I rushed out of the taxi. When she rejected his advances, Beckert sabotaged her research and impeded her academic career, according to the lawsuit. Ravina claims that Beckert made it clear that she was required to yield to his sexual advances if she wanted her works published in academic papers. When she notified administrators at Columbia University, they brushed off her complaints and blamed her for flirting with Beckert. Ravina's lawsuit alleges that Beckert and Columbia are guilty of gender discrimination, a hostile work environment, quid pro quo sexual harassment, retaliation, failure to promote, and wrongful discharge. Newly released emails show that Beckert told his colleagues he felt he was the victim of a political culture that had drifted to the left, according to the New York Daily News. The lawyer I spoke to, a feisty 50-year-old, immediately told me that it was very clear I had been played and that the legal environment had gotten too far to the left and was getting abused left and right by people like Enriqueta, he wrote in an email to a basketball buddy. The Belgian professor said that the lawyer was a woman who immediately saw through the case and was on my side. Beckert also says that the lawyer advised him not to work with women anymore given the climate. She also suggested that in the current environment people in my position should simply not work with women anymore, too risky, his email said. In the civil trial, Ravina's lawyer cited Beckert's emails to colleagues which refer to her as an evil B*********************************************************************************************************************8 an unbelievable B******************************************************8 a damn evil B*********************************************************************************************************************áudio on Saturday morning and killed 6 animals. The male jaguar, the Lirio, escaped around 7:20 a.m. and was captured and returned to its night house after being sedated by a vet team nearly an hour later, after it had mauled 4 alpacas, 1 emu and 1 fox. The killings appeared to stem from territorial disputes, according to CBS News. No people were hurt. Frank Burks, the zoo's chief doctor, said an additional 3 animals are being treated for injuries. In over a 100-year period, we've never had any incident like this, said the president and CEO of Audubon Nature Institute, Ron Foreman, at press conference. News outlets report the zoo was closed Saturday and would reopen Sunday. it was not immediately clear how the animal escaped. An investigation is underway. We receive inspections a few times a year from Association of Zoos and Aquariums since 1981, Foreman said. This is by far the biggest tragedy we've had. Audubon Zoo houses over 2,000 animals on its 58-acre property and has been in operation for over 100 years. Joel Hamilton, vice president and general curator at the zoo, said the 3-year-old Jaguar will not be euthanized. Nothing's going to happen to the Jaguar itself, he said. Unfortunately, it was doing what Jaguars do. We are looking to investigate everything that happened and to prevent anything like this from ever happening again, said Foreman. Burke said the zoo will investigate the incident, including how the Jaguar got free. The animal care team is devastated by this tragic loss, the zoo said in a statement. Today is a difficult day for the Audubon family. This is not the first time a Jaguar has escaped its enclosure at Audubon. In 2001, a Japanese city regarded as the birthplace of the ninja is struggling to attract performers to boost tourism centered on its warrior spies, despite offering an $85,000 salary. Iga City, in Mie Prefecture, Honshu, known as the hometown of ninjas, holds ancient documents on the martial arts experts, made famous on screen, dating back to the 1400s. Just last year, Mie University established an International Ninja Research Center to expand research into the iconic warriors, and the city is building a second ninja museum. Now, though, Iga is suffering from a shortage of ninja performers, which is hitting the local tourism industry hard. This is worrying the city's leaders, given that its population of about 100,000 swells by 30,000 visitors to its annual Ninja Festival, reports Business Insider UK. Iga's mayor, Sakeo Komodo, wants to entice more tourists by publicizing its ninja history. But he faces a major stumbling block, as there is a lack of highly specialized ninja performers in the rural city, given the tide of young people leaving for life, and greater opportunities, in the bigger cities of Tokyo or Yokohama. In an effort to help plug the skills gap and increase ninja-based tourism in Iga, Japan's government is helping the city in its push to attract more ninja performers by providing funding towards the additional jobs. According to Business Insider, the pay is competitive, with today's ninjas earning anything from $23,000 to about $85,000. However, ninja is not an inheritable class. Without severe training, nobody could become a ninja. That's why they have silently disappeared in history. Shigeko Nakagawa, curator of the local ninja museum, told Reuters in 2008. The ninja most probably began with a group of mountain ascetics who lived in the hills around Kyoto and Nara when those towns were the capitals of Japan and Buddhism was being established. The ninja beliefs and practices show the influence of Buddhism with a mixture of Shinto, of the Chinese way of hand fighting, and of the ancient writings of the Chinese Sun Tzu, with his emphasis on spies and on stratagems, deception operations. Before the end of the Heian period, 794-1185, the first book about ninjutsu appeared, written by the great Genji warrior Yoshitsu Minamoto, 1159-1189, the Book of 8 Styles of Kurama. Mount Kurama, a training station of the mountain ascetics, was where Yoshitsu mastered his arts as a child. This book emphasizes the art of flying. Yoshitsu is believed to have been a great jumper, and the use of shock troops. Warfare in the plains of Iga tended to be carried on by stealth rather than by bloodshed. The mountain priests would teach the head of a strong family their secret arts, and these would be passed from a father to his sons, who might also visit the wilderness temples for indoctrination. Even today, says playwright novelist Tomoyoshi Murayama, the people of Iga are known as sly, tricky, and crafty. As the people of Iga became known for ninja fighting landlords in the period of the civil wars from the middle of the 14th to the end of the 16th century, called upon the town for spies and warriors. There were 2 major families there, each having about 300 ninja. The ninja's garb was all black. He wore a black cloth wrapped in turban style about his head and covering his mouth and jaw. His cloak was full-sleeved, and the arms ended in gauntlets. Chain mesh armor was often worn beneath it. Jean-Claude Juncker was seen stumbling, walking awkwardly and losing his balance several times ahead of a gala dinner Wednesday. The European Commission president was attending a dinner at the NATO summit in Brussels attended by US President Donald Trump and a number of other world leaders. Juncker was stumbling and swaying to the extent that the presidents of Finland and Ukraine, among others, had to help keep the 63-year-old upright. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte also stepped in to guide Juncker. Footage from the summit also shows him struggling to make it up some steps and being held by the arm, at times by 2 other people. At one point he can be seen looking worryingly precarious as he makes his way off a podium and nearly falling over backwards as he is led away by the arm. Juncker has previously said he suffers from sciatica, a compression of the sciatic nerve, that sometimes affects his movements. Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa said Thursday that Juncker had complained of back pain. He doesn't have a serious health problem as far as I am aware of, but he does have a back problem for some time, Rutte said. It is a problem in a sense that he sometimes has these pain attacks. Juncker's office declined to comment, citing privacy concerns. Leaders of European institutions were invited to join NATO leaders for a meeting and dinner on Wednesday night. The NATO conference was marred by US President Donald Trump's suggestions that certain EU countries weren't contributing the 2% of GDP required towards the NATO budget. The term sciatica describes the painful symptoms when the sciatic nerve, which runs from your hips to your feet, is irritated due to something pressing or rubbing on it. The most common cause of sciatica is a slip disc, which is when a soft cushion of tissue between the bones of your spine pushes out. Other causes include a back injury, spinal stenosis, a narrowing of the part of your spine where nerves pass through, and spondylolisthesis, when one of the bones in your spine slips out of position. Sciatica usually gets better in 4 to 6 weeks, but it can last longer. If you have sciatica, your bottom, backs of your legs and/or feet and toes may feel painful. The pain may be stabbing, burning or shooting. Tingly, like pins and needles, numb and/or weak. These symptoms may be worse when moving, sneezing or coughing. There may also be back pain, but it is usually not as severe as a pain in your bottom, legs and feet. Doctors can treat sciatica by suggesting exercises and stretches or prescribe painkillers that help with nerve pain. They might also refer you for physiotherapy or psychological support to help you cope with the pain. Source: NHS England. Trump created tension with Chancellor Angela Merkel after publicly berating Germany for its new Nord Stream 2 pipeline agreement with Russia. Germany is totally controlled by Russia, Trump said. I think it's a very bad thing for NATO, Trump said. Several EU leaders, including Juncker, were quick to kowtow to the president's demands, saying the EU must take responsibility for its security. In a statement on Tuesday, Juncker said, Jenna Bush Hager enjoyed a fun-filled weekend with her family in the wake of the 4th of July. The Today correspondent, 36, took to Instagram on Monday to share a series of photos of her family spending some quality time together. She and her husband Henry Hager, 40, can be seen with their daughters Mila, 5, and Poppy, 2. Wearing combinations of red, white, and blue while celebrating Independence Day. Most magical weekend with my peeps, Jenna wrote next to the shots, which appear to have been taken at the family's vacation residence in Long Island, before joking that Rentry Mondays are hard. Single quote PPS, I'm off ice cream, at least for the night. She added, implying she has enjoyed enough sweet treats to satisfy her sweet tooth at the moment. One of the frames sees Jenna and Henry each carrying one of their daughters on the beach. Jenna, wearing a navy blue top and a patterned red, blue and white skirt, is wearing a straw hat in the photo and shielding her eyes behind sunglasses, while lifting Poppy in her arms. Henry, meanwhile, is wearing a blue t-shirt and a red bathing suit as he carries Mila. Both parents also posed for a couple snap, with Jenna looking chic in crisp white pants and a navy blue top. In the photo, her hair is pulled back to reveal a pair of dangle earrings. Henry, clad in khakis and a blue shirt, is resting an arm around her shoulders. Henry and Jenna took another shot with both of their daughters, with both Poppy and Mila in identical dresses and wearing red, white, and blue necklaces. In the frame, Mila is also wearing a patriotic head bopper with red stars on it to mark the 4th of July. Jenna, meanwhile, is donning a red dress with a blue leaf pattern, while Henry is in a black and white gingham shirt. The Today correspondent shared additional snaps on her Instagram stories, sharing details of her family weekend with her 562,000 Instagram followers. She also included an image of her daughters jumping naked through some sprinklers on the family's property amid the warm summer weather, writing on top of the shot, "Sprinkler parties." The mother also posted a photo of Mila in the bathtub, captioning it, "Sin-filled baths." Jenna gave a glimpse of her family's activities by including a photo of an elegantly dressed table with blue placemats and a candle-top centerpiece, writing, "Dinner with friends." Over the weekend, Jenna shared a sweet image on her Instagram account that was taken by her eldest child and shows the former first daughter and her husband Henry puckering up in front of some hydrangeas at their home, apparently at the request of their budding photographer child. Mila Hager, age 5, Jenna wrote alongside the image, almost as a form of credit to the photographer. She then revealed the very clear instructions she and her husband were given before the snap was taken, and Mila's coincidental timing. "Mama, Daddy, kiss in front of the flowers," Jenna revealed the little girl had told them, before joking, she must have known it was International Kissing Day. Jenna's eldest Mila clearly has an eye for a beautiful background. Behind the kissing couple there is a hedge of hydrangea blooms in a variety of pretty purples, blues, and pinks, serving as a picture-perfect location for the romantic shot. In the sappy snap, Jenna is pictured wearing a striped shirt dress and a pair of espadrilles, and leaning in for a pronounced peck from Henry, who is equally casual in an I-heart night t-shirt and a pair of gray shorts. The father of two also has a pair of sunglasses perched on his head, and appears to be barefoot as the duo stand in the grass outside what appears to be their summer home in Long Island, where they are thought to have spent the week while celebrating July 4th. It's been a fun-filled week of family time for Jenna, her husband, and their daughters, who have clearly relished the opportunity to get out of the city and spend some time with one another, beginning with a few Independence Day celebrations. On Wednesday, Jenna shared an adorable photo of Mila and Poppy decked out in red, white, and blue dresses in honor of the patriotic holiday. In the snapshot, Mila is holding a noisemaker and wearing a red, white, and blue head bopper with metallic streamers, while little Poppy is carrying a silver pom-pom. Both girls are wearing festive red and white frocks featuring pops of blue. Mila's red and white floral dress featured shoulder ties and blue flowers, while Poppy looked darling in a red and white gingham dress. Senator John McCain has called on Trump to cancel his upcoming summit with Russian leader Vladimir Putin unless he is willing to confront him about election meddling. The Republican senator's statement came after 12 Russian intelligence officers were charged on Friday with allegedly hacking into Democratic email accounts during the 2016 presidential election and releasing stolen and damaging conversations. The group are also accused of stealing information on 500,000 U.S. voters after hacking a state U.S. election board. McCain said the charges were the result of the hard work of America's law enforcement and intelligence officials who dedicate their lives to bringing to justice those who wish to do us harm. On Twitter, he said Putin was not America's friend, he was the nation's enemy. These revelations add to a body of evidence confirming an extensive plot by Vladimir Putin's government to attack the 2016 election, sow chaos and dissension among the American electorate, and undermine faith in our democracy, McCain said in a statement. And despite repeated warnings from our nation's top intelligence and military leaders, the Kremlin's efforts to weaken our institutions have continued unabated with insufficient action taken by the administration or Congress to strengthen our cyber defenses, safeguard our election systems, and deter further destabilizing activities. President Trump must be willing to confront Putin from a position of strength and demonstrate that there will be a serious price to pay for his ongoing aggression towards the United States and democracies around the world. If President Trump is not prepared to hold Putin accountable, the summit in Helsinki should not move forward. The indictment of the 12 intelligence officers marks the first time Moscow has been directly implicated in meddling in the 2016 election, and comes just days before Trump and Putin are scheduled to meet. McCain, though the only Republican to have spoken out, is not alone in his calls for Trump to cancel the meeting. Democrats have overwhelmingly made the same call. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said earlier the indictments are further proof of what everyone but the president seems to understand. President Putin is an adversary who interfered in our elections to help President Trump win. Schumer says Trump should cancel his meeting with Putin until Russia takes steps to prove it won't interfere in future elections. White House spokeswoman Lindsay Walters stressed the indictments against the Russians contained no allegations of intentional involvement by anyone on the Trump campaign. She also noted there was no allegation the alleged Russian hacking impacted the outcome of the election. The Kremlin has denied the Russian state was involved in election meddling, and a statement from the nation's foreign ministry claims the indictments are designed to spoil the atmosphere of Monday's summit. The ministry's statement blames influential political forces of the United States. A federal judge ruled that Jewish people are protected by law against racial discrimination in siding with a football coach suing a private Baptist college in Louisiana. U.S. Magistrate Mark Hornsby noted that while the nation's highest court hasn't defined what race means under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, he concluded in a court ruling Friday that Jewish citizens have been treated as a racial or ethnic group entitled to the law's protection against employment discrimination. The magistrate issued his findings in a civil case football coach Joshua Bonadonna filed against Louisiana College in February. Bonadonna claims the college's president, Rick Brewer, refused to approve his hiring because of what he allegedly called the applicant's Jewish blood. Modern sociologists and anthropologists, especially with advancements in DNA studies, debate whether Judaism is a people, a religion, or both. There is no doubt, however, that many people haven't continued to view being Jewish as a racial identity, Hornsby wrote in his ruling. It's a legal win for Bonadonna, with the magistrate recommending that the coach be allowed to continue pursuing his claim that the college racially discriminated against him because of his Jewish heritage. An attorney for the college argued for dismissing the claim, saying Jewish ancestry doesn't qualify as a protected race under federal law. Hornsby rejected this. America is no stranger to anti-Semitism, which is often rooted in prejudice against a person based on his heritage/ethnicity without regard to the person's particular religious beliefs, the magistrate wrote. Jewish citizens have been excluded from certain clubs or neighborhoods, and they have been denied jobs and other opportunities based on the fact that they were Jewish, with no particular concern as to a given individual's religious leanings. The college can ask a district court judge to review Hornsby's recommendation before the court adopts it. Bonadona's attorney, James Bullman, said he hasn't found another case in which a court has ruled that Jews are racially protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is precedent-setting, he said. David Barkey, senior counsel for the Anti-Defamation League, said the lawsuit raises a sensitive issue for the Jewish community, given that Nazis and other far-right extremists have perpetuated the anti-Semitic concept that Jews belong to a biologically inferior distinct race. I think we have to remember this is a legal decision, not a scientific or sociological decision, Barkey said. The only concern that I would have is if it was being taken out of context to legitimize extremist views. Bonadona was born into a Jewish family but converted to Christianity during his time as a Louisiana college student and kicker on the school's football team. He often led the football team's Christian devotional, but it was a widely known fact on campus that his mother was Jewish, the lawsuit says. Bonadona says he applied for a job as defensive backs coach at his alma mater and was interviewed in May 2017 by Brewer and the school's head football coach, Justin Charles. The head coach later told Bonadona that he had recommended him for the job, but the college didn't approve his hiring because of his Jewish descent, the suit alleges. Mr. Bonadona asked Justin Charles what that meant, and Justin Charles stated that Dr. Brewer refused to approve Mr. Bonadona's hiring because of what Dr. Brewer called Mr. Bonadona's Jewish blood, the suit says. Brewer has said he has been unfairly vilified and has denied that he refused to sign off on hiring Bonadona because of the man's Jewish heritage. Scrap bog standard pints and sticky late-night shots of liquor. These watering holes take the drinking experience up a notch or two, with complex recipes on offer and refined interiors to boot. Antwerp-based spirits aficionado Jürgen Lischkopf researched the world's top drinking joints and details some of his favorites in his new book, 150 Bars You Need to Visit Before You Die. Some of his recommended haunts include the swanky London cocktail spot Dandelion, Lower Manhattan's Dante, frequented by the likes of Ernest Hemingway, Bob Dylan and Al Pacino, and Blackwell Rum Bar in Jamaica, which is located within a coastal cave. The tipple-inspired tome also includes the recipes for 25 signature cocktails, so readers can quench their thirsty style. A man from Oklahoma has created a video that shows people how to hypnotize a chicken. The minute-long video shows the man from Eufaula, Oklahoma placing the chicken on a wooden table before gently rubbing its back and stroking it. "Hope everyone had a good 4th of July," he says, welcoming viewers to the clip. "As most of you'll know, I got a ton of chickens," he begins. "This is little Eddie. He weighs about 1.5 pounds and is pretty tame. I just want to show everybody how to hypnotize a chicken," the man continues, still stroking the chicken with his hand. "You sit the chicken down. Put its head on the table. They get wound up, so you have to force them to stay down," he says as the chicken appears to settle. "Then, Take your finger and draw a line out about that far. The man instructs as he draws an imaginary line from the chicken's beak outwards. And when you're ready to wake them up, just click your fingers like that, he says, at which point the chicken suddenly springs to. Justin Bieber and Hailey Baldwin will have to take a pre-marriage course run by controversial celebrity megachurch Hillsong before they walk down the aisle, DailyMail.com can reveal. The couple, who got engaged while on a trip to the Bahamas last weekend, will embark on the 5-week course, which covers areas from intimacy between couples to how to manage your finances after tying the knot. A source revealed, the marriage course is something which is encouraged and in some cases demanded by Hillsong pastors before they will marry you. Justin obviously has a past. He had a long-term relationship with Selena Gomez, and he wants to go into life with Hailey with a clean slate. It is something they are both keen to do as faith is important to them, and it will really help build a strong foundation for the years they plan to spend together. Both Hailey, 21, and Justin, 24, have been seen attending Hillsong services in New York and Australia, and the singer is very close to celebrity-favored pastor with the church Carl Lentz. The source added, Justin loves, honors and respects Hailey and takes this commitment very seriously. They had their differences and that is why they split, but now he feels this is 100% right and can't wait to be her husband. The 5-week marriage course begins with an online assessment of a couple's strengths and weakness in their relationship. The church then looks at the results of the assessment to determine which areas should be targeted during the program. According to their website, each couple is assigned a support couple and requested to attend 5 classes over a 5-week period. It states, if you weren't ready for marriage before, you will be now. The course also covers conflict resolution and effective communication. Hillsong NYC, which is run by Carl Lentz, the singer's close friend and confidant, had its last pre-marriage course for attendees at the church in February. It says of the program, God didn't intend for us to do life alone as individuals or as couples. We all need refreshers on effective ways of communicating and being intentional about caring for each other. Things can fall apart when we lose sight of the basics. This course is designed to help you refresh foundational tools necessary to building a lasting marriage. Every week we will spend 3 hours together encouraging and strengthening one another toward this end. The singer and model got engaged on Saturday evening at a local restaurant while on a Bahamas trip with Hailey. Bieber has long expressed a love of God and repeatedly mentioned the Almighty in his Instagram post Monday, confirming the engagement. He even suggested the relationship was the work of divine intervention. Bieber explained how committed he is to leading our family with honor and integrity, letting Jesus through his Holy Spirit guide us in everything we do and every decision we make. I am so in love with everything about you, Bieber wrote. My heart is completely and fully yours and I will always put you first. You are the love of my life, Hailey Baldwin, and I wouldn't want to spend it with anybody else. While gushing about Hailey, the star also wrote as if God had guided him on when to propose. God's timing really is literally perfect, Bieber said. We got engaged on the 7th day of the 7th month. The number 7 is a number of spiritual perfection. It's true Google it. The singer even cited a biblical passage, Proverbs 18:22, which he explained means how God created marriage and believes that marriage is important for the individual and for society. Bieber wrote, He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Bieber then ended his post, This is the year of favor. Last November, in an interview with Us Weekly, Pastor Carl Lentz said Bieber had dedicated himself to Jesus Christ. I think Justin has a really deep, mature relationship with Jesus. I don't think my teaching or my preaching has made even remotely as big of an impact as his own desire and passion and love for Jesus. That's how it should work. The primary change agent in somebody's life, it shouldn't be a person. It shouldn't be a preacher. It should be God. I think all his changes are a credit to him and him allowing God to continue to use him. Haley's actor dad, born-again Christian Stephen Baldwin, took to Twitter alluding to the happy news, tweeting, "Sweet smile on my face. Me and wife, Kenya, always pray for God's will. He is moving in the hearts of JB and HB. Let's all pray for his will to be done. Love you too so much." He then hashtagged, God's timing, bestisiato.com. Congrats at Jeremy Bieber at Patamulet, price Jesus. Khloe Kardashian is proud her Good American brand gets down and dirty with their products. The 34-year-old Keeping Up with the Kardashians star co-founded the denim label and alongside Immigrant and is pleased they get real people in all shapes and sizes involved in testing the garments for practicality and performance, rather than relying on machines and technology. It blows my mind to think that the average woman in America is a size 16, UK size 18, and that no one is catering to her, said the size 4 star. There are billion-dollar brands that still don't perfect their performance wear. Khloe then explained why she likes to make all sizes available. "I've always been compared to my sisters, who I will never look like, so it was really personal to me to create a clothes range that caters to all sizes." The sister of Kim and Kourtney added, "They test on machines instead of people. Whereas Emma gets women into the design studio to do squats or bend over, and then asks the other women to see if they are revealing anything, we can get down and dirty over there." The cult brand, which is available from a size 0 to 24, has more than 12,000 women sign up each time Khloe posts about casting sessions on Instagram. And 35-year-old Emma, who is married to Jens Greed, the co-founder of Framed Denim, explained the importance of giving women a choice and pushing the boundaries of the norms of the fashion industry. In a joint interview with Sunday Times Style magazine, she said, "I think women can sense the authenticity of what we are doing. They can smell bulls **t. We want to showcase real women with real lives and highlight their differences." Hopefully Good American has a lot to do with a shift in the fashion industry. People know that we have been successful in a short amount of time. We've given women a choice, rather than offering a few popular styles and a couple of extended sizes, because that really isn't the point, is it? So often fashion, it's a little more than a feeble attempt to tick a box. On Sunday, while backstage at a charity poker tournament in Los Angeles, Khloe fearlessly showed off her post-baby bod on social media. The 34-year-old unbuttoned her blazer to reveal a skin-tight bodysuit paired with thigh-high boots. She was joined at the event by sisters Kim Kardashian and Kendall Jenner. Their mom, Kris Jenner, was also in attendance. "You actually look really skinny," Kim told Khloe as she flashed the camera. Kendall added, "You look so good." Kim and Khloe showed up to the poker tournament with the same hairdo. "Moms with bobs," Kim told the camera while her sister played with her blonde version of the same dresses. "Bobs with moms," Khloe chimed in. The new mom's blunt cut was done by hairstylist Justine Margin. Prior to the event, Khloe took to social media to share that she was sick. "Today I'm supposed to be playing in a poker tournament. We're raising money for the City of Hope." Kidnapped model Chloe Ayling has said she had to make her captor fall in love with her in order to be let free. Miss Ayling, 20, was drugged, stripped, and held captive in Italy for 6 days last year, but many back home cast doubt over her story. Speaking on BBC Two's Victoria Derbyshire story this morning, she said thinks it's ridiculous that people still don't believe after Lara, 30, was convicted last month. The mother of one from South London discussed the horrendous ordeal where she was drugged with ketamine, stuffed in a hodl bag, and driven 120 miles in the back of a car. She said hearing she was going to be sold into sex trafficking was horrendous, and her mother and agent wouldn't be able to pay the €300,000, £265,000 ransom. Speaking this morning, the former glamour model said once she started to share a bed with her captor, he was being more responsive and answering her questions. The more we started talking, the more the bond was kind of forming, and once I realized he was starting to like me, I knew I had to use that to my advantage, she said. She said he asked to kiss her and have a relationship, which she saw as a chance to get out. Once I saw his reaction to what I was saying, that things could happen in the future, he was acting excited and really looking forward to it and always talking about it. It was that response that made me realize I needed to keep doing that. She also hit back at the press saying they had brainwashed the public to hate her. I think it's ridiculous that the people still doubt after the court has convicted him, she said. I think the media has brainwashed people so much into believing that I was lying. Once they realize that someone is controversial, I think they just dig deeper and deeper to make the public hate that person even more, because at the end of the day that's what will get the views. So that means getting stories from irrelevant people just to make the public hate them, and that's what it's done to a lot of people, so they still don't believe any single quote, she added. It is hurtful because I didn't expect to go through something so bad and then be disbelieved by your own country, but there's nothing I can do until the verdict. Discussing the press conference held outside on her return, Miss Ayling said she guessed people cast doubt on her claims because of the way she sounded and was dressed. I was happy to be there because I'd just come home after a month of not seeing my family and thinking I wouldn't see them again. I was really happy to be home. I just got off the plane in shorts and a top. People didn't like my outfit there, but I was just being me. I went to the reporters because I thought that would make them go away so I could have privacy and I could be with my family, but it didn't really work. People expect me to be crying all the time and shutting myself off from the world. One of Iceland's richest men has hit back against claims that his whaling company illegally killed a blue whale, saying that the creature could have been a hybrid species. Campaign groups shared pictures of the massive mammal's carcass, saying it was an endangered blue whale, on Wednesday. Anti-whaling group Sea Shepherd said the whale was slaughtered by Christian Loftson's whaling company, Valur HF. But multimillionaire Loftsson, Valur HF's managing director, insisted the whale in the photographs was not a protected blue whale, but was either a fin whale or a hybrid species, both of which are not protected under Icelandic law. We have never caught a blue whale in our waters since they were protected, Loftsson told CNN. We see them in the ocean. When you approach a blue whale, it's so distinct that you leave it alone. However, he added that if the whale was actually a blue whale, it had been killed accidentally, despite claiming the difference between blue and fin whales is easy to see. Why would we want to catch and make it extinct? We would be cutting our economic soul, he added. The whale's huge carcass was seen being hauled into port by the Valur ship while tied to the side of the vessel before being dragged onto the dock on Saturday evening. Crew members then took turns posing for photos straddling its back, having needed run-ups to clamber on top of the world's biggest animal, video from the scene showed. Blue whales were almost hunted to extinction last century, and there are only 10,000 to 25,000 left alive. One has not been slaughtered for more than 50 years. Sea Shepherd said it was a 22nd whale killed by Loftson's outfit in the past 3 weeks, the others being endangered fin whales. Lofson ordered his crew to butcher the whale just like it was another fin whale, the anti-whaling group claimed. The meat, skin, blubber and bone all now mixed in with the fin whales previously caught, which will make it difficult or impossible to locate during potential inspections by the authorities. Later photos and video showed the whale being butchered, and activists said the meat would be sold to Japan, where whales are still eaten in restaurants. Loftsson is allowed by the Icelandic government to hunt fin whales, despite the global moratorium on whaling, but killing blue whales is illegal everywhere. Multiple experts who saw the photos said the whale was almost certainly a blue whale, going by its color, pattern, and fin and tail shape. It has all the characteristics of a blue whale. Given that, notably the coloration pattern, Dr. Philip Clapham from NOAA Alaska Fisheries Science Center said, "There is almost no possibility that an experienced observer would have misidentified it as anything else at sea." Humane Society International senior marine scientist Mark Simmons also believed it was a juvenile blue whale or a rare fin whale-blue whale hybrid. Sea Shepherd UK Chief Operating Officer Robert Reed demanded DNA samples be taken from the valerates equipment, meat stocks, and storage to prove it illegally killed a blue whale. This man must be stopped from ruthlessly violating international conservation law and bringing such disrepute to the nation of. At the age of 50, Kylie Minogue's beauty certainly isn't taking a trip south anytime soon. This is in no small part thanks to a dedicated skincare regime and a knowledge of what works for her 50-year-old skin. From a $43 chemical exfoliator that helps to keep her complexion looking flawless to the one thing that Kylie swears by to fight the wrinkles, here female takes a look at the pop star's skincare secrets, as well as the 3 golden rules she follows on a daily basis. Scroll down for video the products she swears by when it comes to her makeup and beauty bag. Kylie's favorite products are surprisingly affordable. Top of the list for the Australian beauty is the cult product, Alpha H Micro Cleanse Super Scrub, which retails for $43 and has numerous fans around the world. Alpha H Micro Cleanse Super Scrub, $43. Pond's Cold Cream Cleanser, $7.99. Nubbo Night Cream, $200. Natio Ageless Daily Moisturizer UV Protection SPF 30+, $18.95. Kylie likes to use the product because it's a gentle chemical exfoliant that helps to slew away any dead skin cells. The ultimate morning time wake-up call, this Singy facial polish is infused with soothing cucumber and peppermint, alongside a cocktail of blemish-battling, line-lessening and free radical-fighting actives which works to deep clean lackluster, congested complexions, the Adore Beauty website writes. Alongside this, the pop star has previously told Female that she has for a long time been obsessed with Pond's Cold Cream Cleanser, which retails for just $7.99. "It's all I really use to look after my skin. It's such an old classic. My mom uses it and it really does work. It's made such a difference," Kylie explained. Elsewhere, she has countless times extolled the benefits of a good sunblock, dubbing it the ultimate wrinkle fighter, and a decent night cream, such as one from Nubbo, where such products retail for as much as $213. The 3 golden rules for great skin alongside her hero products. Kylie has also previously shared the 3 golden rules others should follow if they want great skin. This is going to sound like a boring infomercial. But my tips would be sunblock, cleanse with a cloth, like a muslin cloth. I always take my makeup off. I've been wearing makeup for work for a long time. Sick, she told the UK TV programme, ITV's Lorraine earlier this year. A good dermatologist, if you've got time to go and have some treatments. In the past, the pop star has tried collagen wave facials, a procedure which sees patients blasted with radio frequency to tighten skin tissue and plump up the face. In 2016, it was reported that following a course of 6 initial treatments with celebrity dermatologist Neelam Patel, Kylie was then put on a maintenance program which sees her having an hour-long session every few months. A friend of Kylie's told the Daily Mail, Kylie is a big fan of non-invasive treatments, which means there is no downtime and no covering up with a balaclava for the next few days. Collagen waves are utterly painless and very relaxing, and afterwards her skin is glowing. It's a lot more natural than Botox, and doesn't involve painful injections. Kylie believes they have taken years off her, without giving her a frozen, unnatural look. During the hour-long session a metal sheet is placed behind the back, and a heated roller is then maneuvered around the face, neck and décolletage. Radio frequency heats up deep layers of the skin and underlying tissue, causing deep collagen structures in the skin to tighten. This is said to boost the body's own existing collagen levels. Lara Trump enjoyed a bath-time snuggle with her 10-month-old son, Luke, this week, and she couldn't resist capturing the moment. The 35-year-old wife of Eric Trump took to Instagram on Wednesday to share a heartwarming photo of herself holding her little boy in a hooded baby towel. "We love bath time," she captioned the image, which appears to have been taken in their New York City apartment. In the snapshot, Luke is giggling gleefully and chewing on a piece of cloth while Lara has her arms wrapped around him. The mother of one is wearing a navy pleated tank dress, and her highlighted hair is in loose waves around her shoulders. Just a few days before, Lara posted a photo of Luke watching his dad on TV single quote after Eric, 34, appeared on Fox and Friends. Eric also tweeted the photo, writing, #but Bill Luke watching dad on @Fox and Friends. However, some people couldn't help but poke fun at Eric and point out that his son was photographed facing away from the TV screen. "A's in back of head?" One commenter cheekily responded, while someone else added, "Cut kid. Don't think he is watching daddy with his back turned to the TV stuck on the fake news channel." Since Lara and Eric welcomed Luke in September, they have been posting photos and videos of his every move on social media. Just last week, Lara shared an adorable snapshot of relaxing on a lounge chair in his navy swim trunks while enjoying the day poolside. "He's basically 25, Lara joked, and many fans couldn't resist pointing out that he looks just like his grandfather President Donald Trump. "Looks just like his grandpa," one person wrote, while someone else called Luke Grandpa's little twin. In the snapshot, Luke's bright blonde locks are sticking straight up in the air, and many agreed that he inherited his grandpa's infamous hair as well. He's got his grandpa. A lesbian couple searching for the owner of a lost dog Sunday evening were victim to a horrific verbal attack by a homophobic man who spotted them together near his property. Trudy and Wendy Dragoon had been walking on Southeast Duke and Southeast 63rd Avenue in Portland, Oregon at the time the furious man approached the women with 2 fists in the air. The married couple shared footage of the disturbing incident to their social media pages this week. The unnamed man is heard first shouting at Trudy, "Let's go. Act like a *** king man, get it like one." He continues on the expletive and slur-laced rant, "Gay pride *** B *** H."
Get the F***K out of the road. Come on. You're a F***King woman. I'll F***King knock you on your F***King ***, you fat cow. The women both seemingly keep calm during the verbal attack, and Trudy is heard replying to him, "You think that you scare me?" Throughout the video, the man continues to degrade both women, flip the finger and threaten violence upon them because of their sexual orientation. You're dumb. Get the F***K going, cow. You're a cow. Go F***King scissor each other, he shouted. Trudy then tells him, "I will knock your drunk on your right now." Then man moves closer to her and prepares to fight her, before another man intervenes and pushes him away from her. The man then goes on to say, "I'll literally put you to F***King sleep." At the end of the video, a police officer arrives to the scene, but refuses to report the incident. When the video went viral, however, the women received overwhelming support from locals and other viewers. Police in the area announced after they were investigating the matter. The police bureau is aware that speech, such as the speech present in this video, instills fear in members of our community. The police bureau works with community members and community organizations regarding bias crimes. The statement released by Portland Police Public Information Officer Chris Burley said in a public statement, "I am not able to speak about the event, as this is an open investigation. I was not present at the time." One wintry afternoon I was sitting at home, feeling despondent, when my 4-year-old daughter ran in to greet me after preschool. 7 weeks after a terminal cancer diagnosis, a targeted chemo drug had caused acne-like blisters across my entire face. In my most vulnerable hour, I was ugly and disfigured, too. Gabriella straddled her legs across my lap and looked at me without speaking. I wanted to turn away, afraid my scars would scare her and she would think me ugly, but I knew I could not protect her from what was happening. So I sat waiting, until she cupped my face in her hands and asked, "Does it hurt, beautiful mummy? Shall I kiss it better?" Then she kissed my cheek, before wiping away my tears. Beautiful mummy. These unexpected words struck something at my core, releasing a wave of leftover shame. In an instant, I not only forgave my face its current ugliness, but all the ugliness I had seen in it from a very young age. Suddenly, I realized my pizza face, as I called it, had been dredging up judgments I had aimed at my appearance for years, judgments that had led to bulimia and a crippling lack of self-regard by my mid-teens. This moment of clarity gave me the chance to tackle the remnants of those misperceptions and finally let them go. As a result, I even began to feel grateful for what the drug, afatinib, had done to me. This is what I call a life shock. An unexpected moment offering an opportunity for increased self-awareness. These moments are collision points between life as we see it and life as it actually is. They shock us into paying attention. A life shock might be anything from a throwaway comment that hits a nerve to the words, "Your lung cancer is incurable." Since my diagnosis nearly 4 years ago, I've had multiple brain tumors 3 times, radiotherapy, targeted chemo, brain surgery, and have been twice at the brink of death. On each occasion, I have needed to call on my inner resources, and my condition has stabilized, at least for a time. Of course I would return cancer to center in an instant if I could, but I would not return what the associated luffy shocks have given me, taught me, and made of me. I am far more myself now, at 52, than I was before my diagnosis, and these years have been the most creative, purposeful, and fulfilling of my life.
This is what Luffy shocks can do for us, if we know how to suck the marrow out of such moments, to make the most of encounters with forces that we cannot control, predict or plan. Instead of resisting and resenting these encounters, we can learn to engage with them in powerful and transformative ways. It was my late mentor and business partner Dr. K. Bradford Brown, a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist, who first introduced me to the concept of Luffy shocks. As well as teaching individuals about his work through the More to Life Foundation, which runs transformational courses, I spent 20 years running a consultancy that took these ideas into large organizations, where we taught clients to dismantle their harmful, self-limiting beliefs and behaviors and thus improve company performance. Luffy shocks expose the ways in which we limit ourselves. They also invite us to grow if we know how to respond to them. When Luffy shocks strike, we often draw false conclusions about ourselves, other people and the situation, which then determine what we feel and do. For example, judging my sore face as ugly, I asked my husband to drive me everywhere to avoid public transport. I feared my little girl would recoil from me and even resented the drug that was keeping me alive. Of all the things cancer could do to me, I thought, why this? It seemed so cruel. However, my pizza face and the beautiful mummy Luffy shocks were exactly what I needed to flush the old judgments out of my system. This is how Luffy shocks can serve us if we know how to engage them. Here are some examples of how others have been able to use Luffy shocks to find a new sense of peace and self-acceptance, even in their darkest hours. Healing the hurt of adultery. The key to using Luffy shocks to our benefit is to notice them in the first place. We also need to become aware of the way we interpret these moments, the inner voice that judges and criticizes in profoundly false ways. This is the primary cause of our suffering. One of my clients, who I shall call Elizabeth Gurney, was a physiotherapist in her late 50s. She illustrates how challenging our existing beliefs can help us overcome even the most disruptive events. She had been married for 32 years and had raised 3 children when her husband confessed to a 9-month affair. She told me, sitting in the kitchen, my husband was opposite in an armchair, elbows on knees, head bowed. Suddenly he said with a quiet but clear voice, "She feels wonderful in my arms." Life a shock. When I asked Elizabeth to describe her physical reaction, she described pressure in her head, ice-cold hands, a hollow dropping stomach and shortness of breath. And her emotions? Shock, high anxiety, heartache, outrage. When I asked what her inner voice was telling her, she said, "I'm left behind. I'm abandoned. I'm helpless and isolated. I can't survive this." Slowly I got her to challenge these thoughts, replacing each false statement with a true one. "I'm left behind" became "He may leave me, and I may leave him, but that does not put me behind." "I'm abandoned" became "I am able to take care of myself. I can't survive this" changed to "I am still here. I am surviving it." Next, Elizabeth made some resolutions based on the life shock she had experienced. She would hand back the rings, and the expectations that went with them. She would start again, feel her pain but not give up on love. Elizabeth came to realize how lonely she had felt in her marriage over the years, and how she needed to find new ways to love herself instead of expecting that all to come from her husband. She even recognized this as her part in his affair. And thus she took responsibility for her life in ways that had been a long time coming, eventually finding new work she loved and a self-regard she had never previously known. Are you pushing people too hard? In one retail organization, which hired my consultancy partly because it had a staff turnover of more than 40%, There was a director with a fierce reputation. He was a legend in the business and staff were almost universally terrified of him. They had formed collective strategies to cover their backs. On the days of his visits to stores, they posted a sentry in the car park to warn of his coming. He was particularly critical if certain products were not available. Consequently, staff kept those products in storage until he arrived at the store. My role was to deliver a leadership training for his team. Observing him closely, I noticed his dedication to the business. "Are you aware that most of your staff are scared of you?" I asked, once I knew I had won his respect. It was a significant life shock for him. He really didn't know. Why would they be frightened of me? I turned the question to his team. Slightly squirming, they began giving him feedback about being critical and getting angry when things weren't perfect. "But they should be perfect," he retorted. There was my moment to work with him. I asked him to break down exactly what he meant. His answers reflected his high standards of delivering excellence, nothing less. When I asked what he feared would happen if they delivered less, it boiled down to letting the business down, letting customers down, failing at his own job and the staff all losing their jobs. "And what would that make you?" I asked. "A bad manager. A failure. A fraud," was his response. I felt real compassion for him. His care for the business and his people ran deep. His bullying behavior was driven by a demand for perfection, born of these false beliefs about himself. Having worked with him on all this, we found new ground to stand on. I am neither a failure nor a fraud. I do have high standards, but no one is perfect and I don't need to demand that, he said. I will recognize successes as well as pointing out mistakes. By admitting that his behavior, however well-intended, had a negative impact, he found a new path. And the knock-on effect was to improve working practices throughout the company and significantly reduce staff turnover. Experiencing your worst nightmare sometimes, life shocks include the most painful experiences imaginable. And when these moments come, being able to challenge your critical inner voice will help you to find the best possible response. Earlier this year I interacted with a woman at a course I was teaching, who I knew quite well. She told me she had been coping with something in shameful silence for some time. Having split from her partner, who was not the father of her children, her teenage son told her this man had abused him several times, the revelation that shook her to the core. It stirred up old memories of being abused herself by her uncle. It was her worst nightmare, the one thing she had wanted to protect her son and daughter from. She had plenty of experience working with life shocks, and by the time she disclosed this information she had already cleared a lot of self-recrimination. She had also recognized how she had invested more of her self-esteem in being a devoted mother than in anything else. But she hadn't felt or expressed her grief. Letting out your grief can be profoundly healing, and it is often blocked by things like self-recrimination and blame. Now, it was ready to pop. So she lay on the floor, in the middle of our course, and wailed for 40 long, redeeming minutes. She went to the very depths of her sorrow. This was what was needed for her to move into a more intimate relationship with her son and into a more forgiving relationship with herself. By working with this life shock moment and feeling her grief, she found unexpected light in the darkness. When beauty can be a curse, I was leading a workshop when I noticed a tall, slim woman with long blonde hair, delicate features and huge blue eyes. She was hiding from the group's attention, so I sought her out. "What's it like to be as beautiful as you?" I asked intuitively when the opportunity presented itself. Her eyes welled up. "Don't call me that." "But you are beautiful," I pressed. How many people here agree? When all their hands went up, tears streamed down her cheeks. This was a significant life shock for her. People just see my beauty, she eventually confessed, but they don't see me. This woman's exterior had overshadowed her interior for too long, and as a result she resorted to trying to lose herself in the crowd. Having taken some time to win her trust, I brought her to the front of the room. She was very uncomfortable at first, but I encouraged her to bring her attention to the group rather than listening to her inner critic. To her terror, I asked the group what they saw in her. Courage, honesty, strength, vulnerability, resilience, came the replies. Her discomfort persisted, then tears rolled down her face. She seemed filled with the light that radiates when we know we are loved for what is on the inside instead of being judged or accepted for what is on the outside. That day she came to terms with her physical appearance once and for all, as we can all do whether blessed with beauty. It was the first event to be held at her newest restaurant, Thumdum. And owner Lisa Vanderpump joined in the festivities on Wednesday as she took to the red carpet of the DailyMail.com and Daily Mail summer party in West Hollywood. The 57-year-old restaurateur dazzled in white as she was joined by her husband of 36 years, Ken Todd. The reality TV star looked ageless in a slinky white dress which boasted a plunging neckline and spaghetti straps. On her feet she wore glittery silver heels, and kept the silver theme going with her jewelry, which included an ornate teardrop diamond necklace and silver drop earrings. The Real Housewife of Beverly Hills went for a minimalist effect with her arms, wearing only a simple silver bracelet on her right wrist. Her wavy brunette tresses were worn loose and cascaded down her bare shoulders. On Lisa's arm was husband Ken, who looked dapper in a black suit over a white dress shirt. The pair have been married since 1982, having become engaged only 6 weeks after they first met. They have 2 children together, daughter Pandora, born 1986, and adopted son Max, born 1991. The DailyMail.com and Daily Mail summer party was held at Louisiana's hottest new bar and lounge Thumdum, which opened its doors for the very first time just for the event. It is the newest Vanderpump establishment in West Hollywood, California. Lisa Vanderpump and Ken Todd, along with her new business partners Tom Sandoval and Tom Schwartz, have been working hard for more than a year to launch the venue. Nick Lane, a Miami-based industrial designer and creative director, helped to bring Vanderpump's vision for the bar to life, while Sandoval and Schwartz have been developing signature cocktails. Last year, Vanderpump offered Sandoval and Schwartz a chance to go into business. They both agreed to put in $50,000 each for 5% stake in the bar. President Donald Trump has attacked London Mayor Sadiq Khan yet again, this time accusing him of doing a very bad job on terrorism and crime. Speaking on the eve of his visit to Britain yesterday, the president said Khan was doing a terrible job in the capital by allowing migrants to flock to the city. He has clashed with the Labour mayor several times in the past, including over his administration's visa policy and most recently over Khan's decision to allow a gigantic Trump blimp to fly over London. Speaking to The Sun, Trump said, "Take a look at the terrorism that is taking place. Look at what is going on in London. I think he has done a very bad job on terrorism." He added, "I think he has done a bad job on crime. If you look, all of the horrible things going on there, with all of the crime that is being brought in." London was devastated by 4 terror attacks last year, at Westminster, London Bridge, Parsons Green and Finsbury Park. Trump also accused Khan of failing to show respect for the world's wealthiest and most powerful nation. "I think he has not been hospitable to a government that is very important," he said. No, he might not like the current president, but I represent the United States. I also represent a lot of people in Europe, because a Louisiana teenager claims to have spoken with God while stranded for more than 10 hours alone in the ocean after he was apparently dragged out to sea. Blake Spataro, 19, was doing some light swimming while visiting St. Simon Island off the coast of Georgia on Wednesday when he was suddenly yanked into the Atlantic Ocean. Spataro said he desperately tried to call for help, but no one was around to hear his pleas. I didn't want to die out there. I was talking to God the entire night, Spataro said. According to Jax TV, Spataro's family contacted the U.S. Coast Guard, who went on a frantic search for the teenager as he was left stranded in the middle of the sea, floating on his back when his arms got tired. On the verge of giving up, Spataro said that he was revitalized after spotting lights from a nearby Coast Guard ship. He managed to fight through crashing waves until finally landing on the shore of a golf course a few miles from St. Simon Island. I wanted to live. I thought I was too young to die, and I simply didn't want to end there, Spataro said. I am truly blessed to be alive today, he said. Spataro's mother, Janice, who had not accompanied her son and ex-husband to the island, said that she knew intuitively that her son had been lost at sea when the Coast Guard called. I knew he was in the water. I felt it, Janice Dansby Spataro told Fox News. I prayed to God all night long. I was praying, and I reached out on social media to ask for prayer because there's power in prayer. After confirming that Spataro was being treated in the hospital, Director of Glynn County Emergency Management Agency Jay Wiggins sent out a social media post expressing his delight that the teenager was found safe. The opportunity to speak with the young man's father and let our public safety partners know the positive outcome of this situation made my day, and I wanted to share it with all of you, Wiggins said in a Facebook post. Justin Irwin, senior chief with the U.S. Coast Guard in Brunswick, said that he visited Spataro in the hospital, who was recovering from dehydration and exhaustion. I've been in the Coast Guard for 18 years, and I have never seen anything like this, Irwin said. Asked by Jax TV to sum up the experience, Spataro, a woman has detailed her 15-year battle with an eating disorder that led her to have an Adderall and diet pill addiction. McCall Dempsey, 36, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, realized at a very young age that she was not comfortable in her own skin. Growing up in the South, we as young girls were expected to look the part, be the part, McCall said in an interview with Megyn Kelly Today. The expectation to be the perfect package started to influence McCall's health at the age of 15. Scroll down for video. I can remember at a really young age not being comfortable in my own skin, McCall said. I was a late bloomer. I was really tall and gangly. And so that's when I noticed, well, maybe if I change my body I will be worthy. At 15 years old, McCall started to focus on different diets and exercise rituals so she could achieve the body image that she wanted. By her sophomore year of high school, she had gotten her hands on Adderall to help aid weight loss. What really catapulted me into the eating disorder was when I got my hands on the drug Adderall, McCall told Megyn Kelly. Adderall is a medication commonly prescribed to people who have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder (ADHD) and works by altering the natural chemicals within the brain. But the drug can also work as an appetite suppressant. When McCall first started to take the drug, despite not having ADHD, the weight easily came off and people started to compliment how thin she looked. Those compliments slowly turned into concern as McCall lost more and more weight. Before heading off to college at the University of Mississippi, McCall told her mom she was worried about gaining the dreaded freshman 15 single quote that everyone talked about. Her mom, who had no idea at the time about her daughter's eating disorder, encouraged her to get a scale to help keep tabs on if she was gaining weight or not. It's something in our society that we get so hung up on the number on the scale, McCall said. She quickly became reliant on the scale while going through her first year of college, and it only helped heighten her eating disorder. While my friends were out eating late night, I was forming a relationship with the scale, McCall said. Her new normal became working out at least 6 times a week to ensure she didn't gain weight during her freshman year of college. McCall would also fluctuate between anorexia and bulimia while becoming more dependent on Adderall and diet pills. Since her body wasn't receiving the nutrition it needed to function, McCall had symptoms such as blackouts and heart palpitations often. I didn't know that I was suffering from an eating disorder because I looked fine, she said. This continued on after McCall graduated from the University of Mississippi and married her college sweetheart, Jordan, who also did not know his wife was suffering from an extreme eating disorder. I was literally killing myself behind closed doors, McCall said. Her addiction to diet pills only increased during her marriage to a point where she opened her own P.O. box so the drugs would not get sent to her house. One evening, McCall almost overdosed on diet pills with her husband only one room away, but he never realized she was suffering. I'm laying on my bathroom floor, praying to God, God, if you let me survive tonight, I swear I'll throw these things away, McCall said about that evening. And my husband is in the next room. He had no idea. After she survived that night, she threw away the diet pills only to fish them out of the garbage a couple days later. It wasn't until McCall started training for triathlons that she sought help from other people. McCall later enrolled in the Carolina House, where she was able to seek help for her eating disorder. After 81 days in inpatient treatment, McCall was released and had to learn how to survive with her eating disorder in the real world. To pay it forward to everyone who helped her overcome her eating disorder, McCall started a non-profit called Southern Smash to help other people. The organization travels to different college campuses to raise awareness about eating. Her friends were glamorous and often outrageous troubled titans of the fashion set such as Isabella Blow and Alexander McQueen, aristocrats including Lady Amanda Harlick and, of course, musicians like her first husband, the pop star Bryan Ferry. But model Lucy Helmore, who has died aged 58, was never noted for drawing attention to herself. A quiet woman, whose friends remember her as serene and elegant, she married Bryan Ferry and then nightclub boss Robin Burleigh, but said she was happiest alone with her dogs. She told an interviewer, "I'm definitely somebody who needs a lot of time to reflect and digest life." For the past 4 years she had been living quietly in a large farmhouse in Shropshire, hunting most weekends, and raising rare breed pigs while her second husband Burleigh remained in London running the exclusive 5 Hertford Street Club. She is survived by her 4 sons by Bryan Ferry, Otis, Isaac, Tara and Merlin. In a statement, her family said that she had died while on holiday in Ireland surrounded by her beloved dogs, Daisy, Peg and Daphne. The cause of her death remains unclear, but former husband Bryan Ferry declared himself shocked and saddened by the tragic news. One friend, who saw her a fortnight ago, noted that she had looked very unwell, but was surprised she had gone to Ireland. Her late father, a Lloyd's underwriter and an alcoholic, had connections to the Galway area. Lucy had emerged from her marriage to Ferry having needed treatment for drug and alcohol dependency, and never drank again. She was, though, an enthusiastic smoker, and was said to puff up to 60 Marlboro Lights a day. Raised in a Kensington townhouse, courtesy of the millions her father made in the city, and educated at convent school, she had a successful modeling career, posing for renowned photographers such as Robert Mapplethorpe and Stephen Meisel. They captured her sometimes sardonic gaze, and the unsettling perfection of her bone china face. She said, "The thing I remember about Robert Mapplethorpe is that he was incredibly quick and he knew exactly what he was trying to get. When he felt he got the photograph, we just lounged around in his loft and smoked a lot of joints." Through the fashion world she met Roxy Music singer Bryan Ferry. He was trying to get over being dumped by Texan supermodel Jerry Hall, to whom he'd been engaged, but who left him for Rolling Stones Lothario Mick Jagger. Lucy, who when they met was 18 to Ferry's 32, said, "I was very surprised when I met Bryan that he was interested in going out with me. It seemed slightly surreal, I suppose." She posed as the cover model for the Roxy Music album Avalon, but with her back to the camera, a pose which Ferry felt was typical of her intriguing reserve. He once told an interviewer that she had a touch of Greta Garbo and was a Virgo. Not easy. And that was when they were still married. They were wed a month after the album was released in 1982, and set themselves up in a landed gentry lifestyle in West Sussex. Ferry, whose father looked after pit ponies in Durham, was enchanted by his effortlessly upper-class bride, whose family was linked to two baronetcies, and who favored sofas covered in dog hair and mismatched cushions, and avenues of bleached limes. Lucy said of marriage to a celebrity, "I didn't want to be put in the spotlight. My family's attitude to the press and publicity was very much that it was frowned upon. You only appeared in papers if you were born, married or had died. That affected me when I got married to Bryan. But if theirs appeared to be an idyllic lifestyle, it was not long before fissures began to appear." A friend of the pair said this week, "Boredom set in pretty early on in the marriage. Roxy Music were touring, which did not help. I saw them together in 1983 and they were an amazingly glamorous couple, and then by 1985 it was obvious that there were some drink-related problems on her side. Bryan was so self-absorbed, and I think that was a problem. He spent all his energies trying to project the image of a perfect English gentleman." In an interview, she was rather kinder about the way things had panned out for them. She said, "I learned a lot from Bryan and met a lot of other artists I probably never would have met otherwise. I hope when I was married to Bryan I was helpful creatively to him, but it's very consuming being with an artist, because the whole focus is their creativity. There isn't a lot of space to develop your own." She also raised their 4 boys, whom she described as extremely energetic, and needing to be engaged in physical tasks at all times. The domestic world seems to have overcome her. In 1993, she spent 9 weeks detoxing at Farm Place Clinic, near Ilkley in Surrey, and was teetotal afterwards. She regularly attended Alcoholics Anonymous meetings after that. She said, "I know I have an addictive personality. I grew up with alcoholism. My father was an alcoholic. It's genetic, partly." When it came, as perhaps it inevitably did, the end of their marriage was painful. Lucy herself once said simply that we drifted apart, but she also acknowledged that the whole feeling of failure around being divorced was something I felt very strongly. Ferry was notably generous in their 2003 divorce, paying her a reported £10 million. Friends say he also bought her the house in Kensington where she had grown up, and report that she sold it again fairly recently in order to provide each of their boys with a handsome nest egg. As the boys grew up, She revived an interest in photography, and her works were exhibited. They included pictures of friends including the artist Damien Hirst and the late aristocratic magazine editor Isabella Blow, probably her closest friend, who killed herself in 2007. Another member of their London set, which included Kate Moss, was the outer designer Alexander McQueen, who took his own life in 2010. Lucy's death in Ireland has come less than 2 weeks after her friend Annabelle Nielsen, former wife of financier Nat Rothschild, collapsed and died aged 49 in Chelsea. It is an elevated social circle which has now lost 4 members in a decade. Although Lucy's greatest interests were country pursuits, she was never out of Tatler magazine, and was often spotted going to art exhibitions and first nights, and parties with friends such as Bunter Wooster, the 12th Duke of Beaufort. And there were always her boys to look out for. In 2004, her eldest son Otis stormed the chamber of the House of Commons at the age of 22 to protest against the fox hunting ban. 4 years later, he was briefly jailed after assaulting a hunt protester. She said at the time, "I am worried sick about him being in prison without any clean shirts or socks." For someone who loves the outdoors so much, it's very difficult to be in a cell without any windows or fresh air. Although as the years passed, she grew to like early nights and would retire with a pot of tea before 10 p.m., she remained sociable. A chum said, she was not gossipy or opinionated. She was a very loyal friend. 12 years ago Lucy married again, to Robin Burley, son of Annabelle's nightclub owner Mark Burley. Befitting the place of the Burley dynasty at the heart of London society, their wedding was attended by stars such as actor Hugh Grant, who was then dating Robin Burley's half-sister Jemima Goldsmith. Their mother is Annabelle Goldsmith, plus musician Jools Holland and the Marquess of Londonderry. Robin, who was famously cut out of his father's will following a bitter family feud, had been left permanently disfigured after being mauled by a tigress as a boy when he was on a private visit to the zoo of John Aspinall, owner of the Claremont Club, the casino above the old Annabelle's. Today, Robin runs a private club, 5 Hertford Street, and lives above it. But Lucy apparently disliked his late-night lifestyle, and instead more or less lived in the kitchen of her Shropshire farmhouse with her dogs. Her great hobby was riding and fox hunting. She had been doing both since 12. She was a very, very talented rider, said a friend. She retained the elegance she had as a human on the horse, almost an Edwardian elegance. She liked to look chic in the field, too, with riding boots by Maxwell's of Jermyn Street. Lucy herself once said, "I suppose I do spend as much time as I can with horses and dogs. I can't understand people who don't like to be alone." Now, the solitary life she loved has been cut. A man whose ex-girlfriend disappeared 25 years ago has been accused of strangling his estranged wife and injecting her with heroin and fentanyl. Police arrested Gregory Agnew, 50, on Friday after a medical examiner's report revealed how his wife Martha had been killed earlier this year. Martha's daughter had found her mother dead in her home in Ypsilanti Township, Michigan, on February 17. Investigators determined that someone else had injected the 49-year-old with the drug cocktail, but no cause was listed on her death certificate until last week. 4 months after the suspicious death, police have charged Gregory with open murder and have also reopened their investigation into the 1993 disappearance of his ex-girlfriend Tammy Niver, 24. Niver went missing on August 7, 1993, just days after breaking up with Gregory and moving out of the apartment they shared. At the time of her disappearance, Gregory had told police she left his apartment at about 2:25 am. Her car was found abandoned with the keys still in the ignition nearby hours later. An investigation by MALIVE this year revealed that Martha had taken in Niver's 2 children after the mom's disappearance. The same investigation found that police had tried to arrest Gregory for Niver's murder in 2014, concurrently serving Martha with a subpoena. That case was thrown out after it was revealed that police didn't have a warrant, and the county ended up settling in a federal lawsuit for $45,000. At the time of Martha's death this February, she and Gregory were in the midst of divorce, an eerily similar circumstance to that of Niver's disappearance. Police have yet to take Gregory's statement, but he is being held on $500,000 bond in his wife's death. His attorney Ronald Argold has repeatedly expressed confidence in his client's innocence and says he is interested in seeing the evidence against Gregory. "I'm a little surprised they are charging him. They're not going to be able to prove his case," Gold told MALIVE. A judge sentenced a 20-year-old man to 3 life terms for torturing, starving and killing 2 children whose bodies were found in a California storage unit. While sentencing defendant Gonzalo Curiel, Judge Pamela Butler said he never deserves to walk free again, the Salinas, California reported. The cruelty exhibited, the intentional torture, the beatings, starvings, the efforts to exert authority and control, are really reflective of a ruthlessness that is rarely seen, Butler said. Regardless of how you behave in state prison, regardless of what you do to better yourself, you should never get out of state prison, she added. Curiel was sentenced Wednesday for the 2015 killings of 6-year-old Sean Terra and his 3-year-old sister Delilah Terra. Curiel was given 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole for their murder and another life sentence for the torture of their older sister. Nevertheless, he will still be eligible for parole in 22 years, because he was a minor when the crimes were committed. Authorities say the children died from abuse at the hands of Curiel and their aunt, Tommy Joy Huntsman, 41, in her Salinas home. Curiel also was convicted of torturing their 9-year-old sister. Huntsman pleaded guilty in February to 2 counts of murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Authorities began investigating after finding the oldest child injured in the back seat of an SUV in 2015. The girl told investigators that Huntsman and Curiel killed her younger siblings on Thanksgiving after she was caught stealing a bagel. She and her siblings were punched, choked, kicked, hit with belts and other objects, refused food, zip-tied to their beds or chairs, and locked in a dark, cold, cement bathroom, often without their clothes, for hours or even days. The children did not understand why they were being punished. They were forced to sit still in a corner that her torturers selected for them, and were prohibited from moving, crying, or huddling together for warmth, the district attorney's office wrote. That girl, who is now 12, wrote a letter to the court forgiving her aunt and Curiel for their actions. It's not good to dislike someone for a long time. So at this time I would love to say I forgive Tommy Huntsman and Gonzalo Curiel for their actions, she wrote. I wanted my sister and brother to know what life meant. Not the meaning of being hurt, sad, and killed. What I miss about Sean was his style, laugh. A Michigan man will spend 25 years behind bars for forcing his girlfriend to stay in a hotel room naked where he made her have sex with his friends. Alfonso Russell, 48, was found guilty of first-degree criminal sexual conduct, unlawful imprisonment, domestic violence and assault by strangulation last April. The Holt man was sentenced Friday to a minimum of 25 years in prison for his crimes. His girlfriend, who has been unnamed given the sexual assault nature of the case, said at first her relationship with Russell was magical. She said they had consensual sex, but he began to show more aggression towards her and wanted to control everything she did, according to the Detroit Free Press. He and the girlfriend lived at a Lansing area hotel for a month, with Russell claiming his landlord was violent and he didn't want to risk her safety, she said to the court. He rarely let her leave the hotel, and she was only let out to pick up food or beer for her boyfriend or to check on her aunt and uncle a few doors down at the hotel. Russell even sent his friends over to the hotel room to ensure she was still there, she said. She said sex in their relationship became rough and non-consensual. At one point he forced her to perform oral sex sitting at his feet and told her no, you know where a woman's place ice. At times he would strangle her so hard she would lose consciousness. He also brought home friends after work and made her have sex with them on 3 or 4 occasions. When she begged for them to stop, Russell told her, "Make Daddy proud, baby. Make Daddy proud." When she protested, he said, allegedly, "Too bad. The only way that I could see it end is that I was going to be a full-fledged, sick prostitute or I would have left in a body bag," she said in court. Russell has 2 previous domestic violence convictions. Prosecutors talked to 2 of his ex-wives and an ex-girlfriend as witnesses, all of whom said he repeatedly raped and strangled them. A man has been charged with assault after leaving a baby alone in the woods for 9 hours following a car crash. Francis Carlton Crowley, 32, left the 5-month-old infant under a pile of debris and sticks early on Sunday. Crowley is scheduled to appear in court in Missoula on Tuesday on charges of assault on a minor and criminal endangerment. Deputies were called to Lolo Hot Springs at 8 p.m. on Saturday because Crowley was creating a disturbance and threatening to fire a gun, Missoula County prosecutors said. Officers learned he and the baby had been in a crash earlier that day. Crowley was disoriented, likely because of drug use, and unable to help officers find the baby or say how long ago the crash had occurred, charging documents said. Officers continued to search in the various areas where the defendant stated the baby was located, but they had difficulty given the defendant's numerous inconsistent statements about the baby's whereabouts, court records said. Crowley variously said the baby was lying on the side of the road or had died and was buried in the woods. Federal, state and local agencies joined the search, and U.S. Forest Service officer Nick Schultz arrived with an off-highway vehicle. He and Missoula County Deputy Ross Jessup followed a forest road on which Crowley said he had traveled. They continued on a game trail where they spotted small-diameter trees that had been damaged. Eventually, they spotted Crowley's crash car, but the baby was not inside, court records said. Officers followed a trail of personal items, including baby formula and a diaper bag, down the slope from the crash. Jessup and Schultz then searched upslope from the crash, following a game trail until they heard a faint noise about 2.30 m. Jessup found the baby face down, covered in small sticks and dressed in only a wet and soiled onesie. The baby was taken via ambulance to the hospital. On the way, the baby coughed up small sticks, the charging document said. He was treated for dehydration, lack of food and scratches, cuts and bruises and was placed in the custody of the Department of Public Health and Human Services. Crowley, who acknowledged using methamphetamine and bath salts, was jailed, with his bail set at $50,000, 38,000 pounds. For all of us at the sheriff's office, this is what we call a miracle, the sheriff's office said in a statement on Monday. For the officers who were present for this event, it's especially hard knowing what this small baby endured in the last 24 hours. Crowley is from Portland, Oregon, and was previously arrested in June in Missoula on a fugitive warrant from Oregon, The Missoulian report. A man plunged 50 feet down a jagged waterfall after losing his footing while trying to take a selfie. The bumbling youth broke his pelvis in the terrifying plunge on Saturday and is recovering in hospital. He had been visiting his friends at the waterfall in the Gariband district in northern India. Making his way to the top of the picturesque natural feature, he decided to take a photo. But he slipped on the wet stone before crashing over the lip of the falls and plunging down onto the rocks below. He only narrowly avoided seriously injuring another man standing at the bottom of the waterfall. Local police have urged people to avoid taking life-threatening selfies. In June this year, a 35-year-old man died after falling from a 170 feet high waterfall in southern India while trying to pose for a selfie. Gamjan Usman Kaji, from Gat Prabha, climbing down the cliff face of the famous Gokak waterfalls, a popular tourist destination in the Belagavi district of Karnataka state, before slipping. Kaji and his friends had reportedly turned up at the well-known beauty spot heavily drunk on Saturday afternoon, and had been performing stunts near the edge despite being warned of the danger. Eyewitnesses said Kaji had begun. A man has gone viral after mocking the sort of sultry snaps women typically post on social media while on holiday. Pete Bradley, from Lytham St. Anne's, posted a picture of himself on a hotel balcony, wearing a small pair of shorts that he'd pulled up to create a thong effect and expose his bare bottom, which he is seen thrusting towards the camera. "Girls be like, take me back," he joked, mocking cliched Instagram captions familiar from many girls' Instagram feeds. It struck a chord with his Twitter followers, and his post soon began circulating online, racking up thousands of likes and retweets. It even inspired some others to post their own take on a stereotypical holiday post, all featuring men adopting seductive poses. In the snap, Bradley had rolled his shorts up to reveal his bottom and posed on tiptoes, a commonly used trick among women to make their legs appear longer in photos. With his hands on the ledge, he gazed out over his hotel balcony with a mock-serious expression, and his back to the camera. "Girls be like, take me back," he tweeted, followed by sunshine and Spanish flag emojis. The picture went viral and received over 48,000 likes and retweets on Twitter and left his followers in stitches. One tweeted, "This is the most accurate thing I've ever seen, oh my god. Bravo, Pete." It didn't just go down well with men. Women got in touch too to say they recognized their own behavior in his light-hearted post. "This is so me, not even ashamed X," one girl said. A third said, "This is legit me." Bradley's post inspired other men to recreate the ultra pictures women take when they're on holiday. Another Twitter user @DairyFelvy tweeted a picture of himself wearing a pink strip dress with a sweetheart neckline. Posing with a hand on his hip, Derry pulled a pouted face for the Snapchat picture, which he'd written "Anyone awake?" on, a play on an attempt to get some attention with a seductive social media snap. Mimicking Bradley's snap, he captioned the post, "Take me back." Another man, who went by the main man, says he is lucky to be alive after he fell out of a tree in a video stunt gone horribly wrong. Alex Larrabee, of Buxton, was filming a video with his friends in which he climbs to the top of a tree and catches a frisbee thrown his way. But things took a turn for the worst when the branch gave way, sending the 24-year-old to the ground. He ended up in the hospital with a shattered pelvis, a broken top rib, a lung contusion and a concussion. Larrabee told DailyMail.com about how lucky he feels to have walked away with less severe injuries and what he learned from the experience. Larrabee said he was down by a river with his friends on July 11, drinking a few beers when they headed back to his house. It was there that they came up with the idea for Larrabee to climb a tree in his front yard and catch a frisbee. Although he had never climbed a tree that tall or skinny before, Larrabee decided he would give the feat a try. It was quite literally a hold my beer and watch this, he told dailymail.com, in reference to the catchphrase said before attempting a dangerous stunt. Larrabee said he felt the branch swinging back and forth a bit, and he remembered everything until a second before he hit the ground. I was knocked out for about 10 minutes, and my buddies said I woke up on the ground with no idea what happened, Larrabee said. They set me down on the couch and asked if I was fine, and I said I was fine, but then I kept asking the same questions every 5 seconds like, what's going on? Why aren't we by the river? And it was starting to freak them out. His friends eventually took him to the hospital, and, when Larrabee came to, he was lying in a hospital bed with a neck brace. When he was told the extent of his injuries, Larrabee said he was thinking that he was lucky to be alive. I could have been paralyzed and could have died, he said. I had 3 or 4 doctors during my time at the hospital, and they each told me the same thing, that if I had fallen a different way it could have been a lot worse. Larrabee was in the hospital for 4 days before he went back home, where doctors told him to rest and not put a lot of strain on his pelvis. After being home for 2 days, a sneeze and a cough sent him back to the hospital when part of his broken rib dislodged and started poking him in the back. Larrabee says he still feels some pain in his pelvis and from a pinched nerve under his left arm, but is able to walk now and has stopped taking his prescribed pain medication. He also starts a new job as a fire alarm specialist.